at the same time, look at the field of players that are coming out from both Americas and Europe.
Yeah, but that being said, this is one of the weirdest ones that we've been in. It's one of the most stacked fields that we've had, but because so many players are already qualified for the World Championship, it technically makes it a little bit easier to qualify for that spot, but a tougher field to get through. It's kind of a weird position to be in, and I can't wait to see it this weekend.
Yeah, and that situation could lead us to some tiebreakers for those World Championship spots at the end of the weekend. But we'll talk more about that later. Let's go and take a look at the schedule for the 4 days. Today we're going to kick it off with the initial matches for each of the groups. So every player will play once today. Then tomorrow for day 2, we'll have the winners and elimination matches. Then the rubber hits the road for day 3, where we'll go through the decider matches for the groups as well as the quarterfinals. And of course, on day 4, Championship Sunday, for more reasons than one. We have the semifinals and finals, plus those potential tiebreakers. But now let's head into the headlines for this weekend of competition. And Kibler, I'm coming at you for this first one. Back for more. 7 out of the 16 competitors are making their second championship appearance this year.
Yeah, this is a pretty remarkable stat. Almost half the field here has already completed in a championship, and as was mentioned, a number of them are already qualified for the World Championship. So this is an interesting position where we have a lot of players who have proved themselves to be these top consistent performers.
Yeah.
But as well, like Admirable said, a few more spots for Worlds potentially on the line here.
That's right, and that second headline there, Dan, it's the last chance for China. They only have one representative at the World Championship currently, and that's HCT, who got there through the regional points leader position for China. So last chance to get more than one into the World Championship.
Quality over quantity, TJ. HCT is a phenomenal player. In fact, when we were interviewing some of the players that were here this weekend, they were saying, I think HCT is one of the top players in the world, if not the best player in the world, along with Hunter, Ace, and Saiyan, and some of these other players in the conversation. We were in the same position last year as well. China did not really have a player that was qualified through other than Omega Zero, and the person that was able to get that top 4 spot in the final summer season was Jason Zhou, who made a second back-to-back appearance in the semifinals. So I still believe in the quality of the Chinese players at the very top. They just have to continue to prove themselves, and most importantly, they have to get used to traveling. I think a lot of Chinese players, it's like their first time traveling, except for a couple players who've been back, Lion King and Tai Miao, making a second championship appearance this year. I got faith that both these guys can get over the hump.
Yeah, and like you said, those 2 players that are making it back, we'll see if they can succeed this weekend. But I'd like to change this conversation to talk about the meta, because I think that's what people are here to see, the decks. And we can take a look at the most popular decks that players brought to the Winter Championship. Admirable, mid-range Hunter, all the way at the top.
Yeah, I think that Hunter being at the top is not really a surprising metric. I think when it comes to tournament play, or even ladder play for that matter, it's just such a strong deck overall that has game against pretty much everything in the field. The thing that we've noticed recently is that the aggressive decks have begun waning, and as a result, you've seen Priest, in the Dragon Priest form anyway, kind of take a step back as well. And I think that's why for this tournament we saw the Cloning Gallery Priest really step forward with a big force in this one. And then Even Warlock to me always stands out. I'm not a big fan of this deck right now. I don't think it sits in a good spot, but where the 4th deck is concerned, that's really been one of the big talks of the metagame. What's your 4th deck? It's typically going to be your weakest one. Even Warlock just seems like a fairly reasonable pick for most players.
Yeah, one thing that really stands out to me is outside of the top 2 decks, Midrange Hunter and Cloning Gallery Priest, this is not exactly representative of what we see on the current ladder matchmaking. You see a lot of the odd paladins still out there. You see a lot of those aggressive decks where they come out here. What's really happened in the tournament meta is that it's completely shifted and diverged away from what you normally see when you're queuing up a game of Hearthstone on ranked play. So I think that's very fascinating because, people are talking about Genin Baku right now. The announcement has dropped. We are live. This is not recorded. We just saw the announcement at the same time you guys did that Genin Baku will be rotated in the 2019 Hall of Fame, but yet, despite that, in this tournament, not that many people are bringing odd and even decks.
Yeah, and we can transition this into class representation overall, not archetypes. And Kibler, Hunter at the top, no surprise. Shaman at the bottom, also no surprise.
Yeah, Thrall's been kind of having a rough time lately. Rexar, though, doing great. But I do think one interesting thing about the sort of tournament metagame that Dan was touching on compared to the ladder metagame, because players can ban that mid-range Hunter deck, we saw one of the top representing classes is Quest Rogue. Yeah, Quest Rogue is really kind of a surprising thing if you're coming from the ladder metagame to this, but when you can ban that Hunter and you expect a lot of more slow controlling decks, that Quest Rogue deck, especially given the nerfs to Odd Rogue, the sort of previous potential Rogue deck a lot of people played, is a really appealing choice.
Yes, I mean, I think Rogue is actually one of the most interesting classes at this tournament. We have so many archetypes. We have the Quest Rogue that you saw was the most represented. Odd Rogue making a little bit of appearance. Tempo Rogue making a little bit of a comeback, or Miracle Rogue if you want to kind of define it as such. So I'm really, and obviously Viper's Malagos Rogue, the coolest one of them all. And so I want to see if this diversity of the Rogue class can really put it on its map, because everyone's talking about Hunter. Everyone's talking about Priest as the second fiddle, but Rogue is right in there, I think, as a top-tier class. Yeah,
it's going to be because not many bands probably drawn towards Rogue today. We're going to be seeing it a lot over the course of the weekend, so I'm definitely excited. But let's go and take a look at the groups now to see which of these players will be competing. And Auerball, I'm going to come to you to give us who to look for in Group A. What are the big stories coming out with Viper, Noblord, Yuying, and Tansoku?
Well, Viper and Tansoku have been to championships this year. They're coming back for another one. Yuying is a player I'm really looking forward to. In the interview, seemed very calm and composed and touched a lot on mindset and just being focused in game. And frankly, a lot of players did, but it seemed like he had an emphasis on that topic when it came to it. And Noblord, coming from the TESPA Collegiate Series, where he pretty much got his start. He won a national title there and was very successful in his time, and was also competing in a last call tournament a couple years back when he was top 8 in points in the region. And so this whole entire group is stacked, and the one I'm looking forward to is the Noblord versus Viper match, because I think their styles and their deck list really contrast.
Yeah, and that one's coming up first, so something to look forward to. Also, a reminder to the viewers at home, Choose Your Champion is still live currently. So as we give this breakdown of the players throughout all these groups, make sure you're getting on and voting for your champion at PlayHearthstone.com. You can get some packs for how well they do. So
you need to hurry though.
Yeah, you need to hurry though.
Does it close when game 1 starts? Because then you have like a little bit of an edge. You get to see how the game's playing out.
I don't know. Maybe they'll be a little late, but I would get on it now.
Noblord's got a good mulligan. Big Noblord, big Noblord.
But Group B, Dan, Bloodyface, Tyler, Faeli, and Jing.
Yeah, I think the player to watch for this group is Faeli. I think Bloodyface and Tyler already have their world championship spots. Bloodyface, of course, getting second in the fall season. Tyler being the regional points leader for Asia Pacific. So the pressure's off them, and that might help them perform better. But in terms of the questions that we have, Faeli is a player that's been on the verge of breakout for a couple of years now. And when people look at Europe, they look at a lot of the other superstars that have dominated for years, or the newest rookie to come onto the scene of Hunter Race. So I think Faeli is a player that's gone under the radar, but if you look at him, his competitive pedigree in every card game that he touches is being in the top 0.001%. So I think this guy is extremely talented, he's very tall, and he's very motivated to do it this weekend.
All right, we'll transition to Group C here. Kibler, Definition, Zai Ike, and Thunderup.
There are a few big stories here. Zai was the player from China who was generally considered to have been the strongest from the last championship where he appeared, and he may be that sort of best hope of China, the Chinese region getting an additional player through to the Worlds. Ike is a major fan favorite. He's a favorite of mine. A lot of us here as among the casters. But Definition too, he is a player who represents Korea, and he's the last hope for Korea to get a player through to the World Championship, and they have never failed to have a representative there. So a lot of pressure on him.
Yeah, another bonus story. If Tyler makes it to the top 4, that World Championship spot takes precedence over his points leader standings, which means Rivius from Korea would get that spot. So Definition's fighting through Group C.
Backdoor out.
But they do have that out with Tyler, who's playing for Vietnam as well as Korea. In this event.
There you go. Yeah. So all the more reason to cheer for Tyler if you're a fan of Korean players or Rivius.
Yeah, but Group D here, it's Lion King making his second championship appearance. Bunny Hopper, Roger, and Bobby X. And I think one of the biggest players to watch here has to be Bunny Hopper, coming off of a seasonal championship win, but also now that he's finished with his PhD, he can devote even more time to Hearthstone, which makes him even more scary as a player, which is crazy to think about.
You know, it's funny you mentioned that in the interview. Bloodyface was talking about Bunny Hopper, completing his PhD during that time, and he said that he already thinks that Bunny Hopper is potentially the best player in the world. And to think how scary of a player he would have been had he been able to devote more time to playing the game is like an enormous statement from a player of Bloodyface's quality.
Yeah, and of course we have to mention the support systems behind the players competing this weekend, the teams that some of these players representing. Ike, you talked about him being a fan favorite, but he's also a Kibler favorite.
It's true.
Because they share a team. Same with Tyler for complexity. But then we have Timeout, Yuying, Lion King, and Jing all represented by teams. But speaking of teams, we have one of the worst teams you could possibly ask for waiting on the side stage. It's Raven and Soft.
Thank you, TJ. We are back by popular demand for this tournament, and what a tournament it is. We're on the play stage here, and you can see quite clearly, I imagine, what they are playing for, the championship trophy. So it's pretty hype, and to be honest, Sol, I think maybe one of the most powerful championships we've had in terms of the player base.
Oh, absolutely. I think Admirable really hit the nail on the head where, it's incredibly tough in terms of the field of players, but because we have so many returning players who've already wrapped up their work, there's an incredibly likely chance that you'll get, 2 bites at the cherry in terms of qualification. And of course, there's a twinge of sadness for me because this is our last championship event, but it very quickly gives way to massive excitement because we're very much on the road to the World Championship now.
It is the last championships for us, but let's go out with a bang in terms of predictions at least, as we can kick them off. So I'm going to go first with the predictions this time, mainly because I'm kind of in charge on this stage. So my predictions are going to be Bunny Hopper, and I feel like he's just kind of a double threat, to be honest. Not only is he extremely feared by a lot of the players in this tournament, he has a very, very powerful lineup, and as the guys just talked about, he's kind of full-time Hearthstone right now, so I think he's at the scariest point he can possibly be, and he's going to be a terror in this tournament.
I'm going to break from the norm a little bit. I'm going to do something a little bit unusual. I'm going to let my heart rule my head, and I'm going to pick...
He has a heart.
Yeah, unconfirmed. We'll see how it goes. I'm going to go for Ike as my prediction. Ike, I don't think, is statistically the favorite. I don't think he has the best lineup. I think he has Odd Paladin, which he thinks is very well positioned. But I think, as you said, people like Bunny Hopper perhaps have better lineups overall. But I do think he's a fantastic player. I do also think he's just a great guy. And I hate to use the word deserving because who am I to decide who deserves anything more out of these players? But, he's a great guy who's had to overcome a lot of obstacles to get to where he is. And I would personally love to see him pick up a win here.
Yeah, and okay, this is going to be one of the last predictions we ever get to do, so we can go over back to the guys and see how well they are going to do with theirs.
Thanks so much, guys. And I guess we'll just start at the end of the desk with our predictions here. That's Admirable. Who are you picking?
I'm picking Ike for this one, and I can guarantee you one of a few things. Number 1, Ike's going to play his biggest minion, and then number 2, he's either going to kill his opponent's minion so it's dead, and number 3, he's going to hit them in the face so they have less life. And those are the 3 fundamental keys to Hearthstone that you need in order to win, and Ike's got him down pat. I'm taking Ike for this tournament.
All right, Frodan.
Well, my prediction is very similar to Raven. It is Bunny Hopper. I'm not sure. I think I've never actually aligned a pick with Raven before, but Raven's also the picking champion for the winter season. I'm going to give him
Don't
props.
remind us.
I'm going to give kudos where it's due, and I think Raven's kind of been made fun of a lot on this show, but he's also been very on point for his predictions this season. And I agree. I think Bunny Hopper is one of the most technically skilled players out there right now, and like we were alluding to before, he has more time to dedicate, and he's also been on a tear too. He's been competing even in tournaments like Star Ladder leading up to this event.
Yeah. Kibler, second to last.
We like Ike. We like Ike. I have to echo a lot of what Sottle said there. Ike is a fantastic guy, and obviously we both represent Omni Slash. And I do think that he is someone who's coming in with a great mentality and a strong lineup for the tournament. And I'd love to see him do well. I also don't want to break my unbroken streak of predicting people to make as my champion and having all of them make top 4. So we're counting on you.
Kibler just had to throw in a subtle
you're
brag there at the end.
You're talking about who has the best prediction record. I have literally never failed to predict someone who made Worlds.
Weird flex,
just
but okay.
We're
Just saying.
In championships.
Yes.
In championships, yeah. But I'm going to go ahead and pick Viper. I think you guys are crazy. Viper's got Malagos Rogue and Murloc Paladin. How could you not pick?
And we're the crazy ones?
But those are the reasons I did not pick Viper, though.
But it's, I don't know. I think it's very different from what we've normally seen from Viper. I guess the Rogue pick, not so much. Known as a Miracle Rogue expert for much of his career.
Look at that, 3 Ikes. You got a level 2 one now.
Yeah.
Man, I just get so unlucky. I never get the third Bunny Hopper. I don't know what's going on.
Sorry, guys, I broke that streak. But those are our predictions, and like I said, maybe we can give you guys some hints of who to vote for Choose Your Champion. But with that, that's going to do it from us here on the pre-show. First match coming up is going to be Viper versus Noblord. So, without further ado, it's Hearthstone time.
Coming up, Viper versus Noblord.
To be honest, my lineup kind of ended up being targeting my first opponent, Noblord. I predicted Viper to bring cube decks or mid-rangey decks, but he brought full aggro, and these full aggro decks are able to just hit my decks in the face before I can get online. I respect Noblot a lot as a player. He's a really good player and he made it to championship now. It's kind of unfortunate for him that my let's just target Noblot lineup worked out as well as it did.
My lineup against my group is a rather rough one. I have an Odd Warrior, which is going to be quite powerful against my entire group. Oftentimes it's probably going to get banned. Then I have a Hunter, which is going to be also strong, but it probably won't get banned. And then I have my 2 OTK decks, the Quest Rogue and the Topsy-Turvy Priest, and they're both going to be fairly weak against Viper, who's my round 1 opponent.
Like he seems to be very unfavored in the series versus me, so my way out of the groups is just beating Noblot in the first round and then probably losing my second game and then winning against Noblot again because he's favored versus the other 2 guys. And yeah, I just hope that the Priest doesn't like sneak out a win, because then stuff can get ugly for me.
The Viper's not usually an aggressive player, but what I'm hoping is that a lack of like mulligan knowledge or a lack of play knowledge might make him make some missteps. I've practiced matchups lots of times from both ends, and I know from the aggressive end that there's so many different paths that you can take. I hope that he takes like one of the weaker paths.
Welcome, everybody, to the initial kickoff match of the Winter Championships Hearthstone Championship Tour. My name is Frodan. I'm joined by Brian Kibler, and coming up we have Noblord versus Viper. A little clash between Europe and North America, a tale as old as time itself. And let's go ahead and break down what we see. We have 2 very differing lineups. We have something very unusual both on Noblord and Viper's side. What's your take on this, Kibler?
Well, one thing that's really important to know coming into this tournament in general is that players knew not only their groups but their first round opponents before they even submitted their decks. And we heard Noblord and Viper talking about how sort of trying to anticipate what they thought the other would bring really influenced their own deck building choices. And Noblord, he thought, okay, well, Viper's likely to play these slower decks, and that's why he has stuff like Quest Rogue and Topsy Priest, which, as he said in that little interview piece, he really thinks will suffer having enough time to get online against Viper's very aggressive lineup.
Yeah, there's 2 decks that I'm very worried about. It's Topsy-Turvy, OTK Priest, and it's the Quest Rogue. Both of them are very vulnerable to aggressive strategies, which Viper has in spades. The one question mark, of course, is Malygos Rogue. That is a combo deck that tries to beat other control decks. Or other OTK decks, because it just gets it much quicker than other opponents. Right. And so this reminds me very similar of the strategy we saw from China in the previous season, where they brought 3 aggressive decks and a Malygos Druid. Right. And because the reason why is they're trying to just go over the top of these slower decks and really punish them. And so we'll see if that ends up lining up. The statistics strongly favor Viper, almost to a 2-to-1 ratio. The only question is there enough sample size for us to really know? Because I'm looking at the data. There's like 20 games logged in the past month of Murloc Paladin.
Right.
So how do you actually know? It even says that it's a 50-50 matchup against Quest Rogue, which I do not believe.
Yeah, well, one of the really interesting things, we had a chance to sit down and talk to these players. Viper said that he specifically brought Murloc Paladin as opposed to the more common even Paladin or odd Paladin as far as an aggressive deck. And he specifically wanted his deck to be as strong as possible against Fan of Knives and Spirit Lash.
Right.
He was expecting there to be Cloning Gallery Priests and Quest Rogues that had those cards that if you're trying to build a board of 1/1s, you're going to end up getting punished. Whereas if you're playing Murloc Paladin, you play a Tidecaller, you Rock Bull Hunter it, and your opponent's just sits there with their Spirit Lash and like, this gains me some life, I guess.
Right. I mean, I think that just shows you that Viper went 1 level deeper. I mean, there's only 1 single odd Paladin in this entire tournament, and it's from Ike. Yep. And the other person that considered it was Viper, and he said, you know what, I want to bring out Paladin, but just don't want to get destroyed by those big board-sweeping spells. Now, what does surprise me is the ban choices. Both Hunters being banned, which is not that surprising if you, are looking at it just from a glance, because, Hunter's really strong. But there's also some other decks that are worth thinking about.
Yeah. We even heard Noblord say he didn't think that Viper would ban his Hunter in that little interview piece. And in particular, I think he may have expected his Odd Warrior to get banned, because Odd Warrior is obviously a very powerful deck against these more aggressive decks from Viper. So I'm a bit curious about that particular decision from the German player.
All right, well, we'll start off this best of 5 in what could possibly be the most one-sided matchup you'll see all the weekend. It is Secret Odd Mage going first, having a play with Secret Keeper and Kirin Tormage. If that lands, any secret, Viper might just blows one out of the water. It is extremely difficult for a Quest Rogue to deal with this kind of pressure early on.
Yeah, the Odd Mage, the Odd Secret Mage, is just so powerful at pressuring the opponent's life total and does have burst damage in the form of, well, Leroy Jenkins, as we see Viper pick up. Just the hero power dealing 2 damage allows you to back up your early aggression. So even once your opponent does potentially stabilize, if they don't have the quest completed with Vicious Scalehide, they really have just no way to compete in the game. And Viper here, he has a strong draw, and Noblord's draw is fine, I guess, but there's, still, like, he doesn't have Sonya or one of the things that will allow him to really quickly complete his quest.
Yep, and speaking of the quest, turn 1 is already a point of consideration for Noblord, and I love this hesitation. A lot of people think, okay, the way I have to win is to get this quest online, get the mana spent, but Noblord does have an opportunity to take out this Secret Keeper over the course of 2 turns.
Yeah, here he can coin dagger, and looks like he's going to go ahead and just stone his bar. Same basic principle though, which is that he wants to ensure that this gets killed before Viper can get a secret online to buff it. That's right. So the quest can wait. He'll be able to spend that 1 mana later point. He's not planning on completing the quest off of the boar this game.
Yeah, the name of the game for Noblord is survival. A lot of times people might look at the Stone Trust board and think of it as a finishing card, but sometimes, if you just survive long enough, you'll win the board convincing with 4/4s and win in 2 turns after that.
Yep.
So Noblord recognizes the long-term plan here. And even though, Kirin Tormage just comes down, it's still a threatening minion as a 4/3, and Noblord would have to use his Southsea deckhand if he wants to destroy it.
Ooh, he actually has a second deckhand too, and that's pretty nice for his quest. Obviously, he's not going to play them both right here, but it does give him some incentive to play the quest first, then potentially play the deckhand.
Yeah.
To take down the Kirin Tormage here. But there are just a lot of permutations of how he might want to spend his mana this turn.
Yeah, and what's interesting too is that because there's no secret in hand, maybe Noblord feels a lot more comfortable setting up a Vanish play. He did have Preparation Vanish in his opening hand, and I think that is fairly crucial because as good as Odd Secret Mage is with some of its damage spells like Cinderstorm and using its hero power, it is very minion dependent as well. So if Noblord can stall just long enough, he does have a really good play with being able to get 4 Southsea deckhands equivalent if he plays both and vanishes them.
Yeah, it's true. And this turn, we see Noblord definitely taking his time, wants to figure out what not only he wants to do this turn, but all of his sort of future turns that he can plan out here.
Right.
As you mentioned, he does need to try to get a quick quest, very likely completed, in order to have a great chance here. And if he does sacrifice that deckhand here, which would prevent damage over turns, yes. He does sacrifice. All right, yeah, he's gonna go ahead and hold on to them. So I think he agrees with you that he wants to play deckhand into Vanish perhaps next turn.
Yeah, I think this is the winning line because then Noblord is only 1 bounce away from finishing the quest, and then he will be empty-handed essentially.
Right.
But the important thing is he now has a chance, which is more than you can ask for if your win percentage is about 10 to 15% based off the statistics.
We have many secrets.
Ends up working out okay for Viper. Just needed to get 1 damage onto that Wax Elemental. And
second Vanish is pretty good. Yeah, and we see Noblord is going to go ahead and fire off the coin prep Vanish in the correct order.
Yes,
not prep coin Vanish.
A mistake that many people have made. I mean,
I've been there.
We've all been there. At least you have an excuse that you're streaming. I don't have much of an excuse other than that I just did not pay attention.
So now, this is kind of an awkward spot for Viper. He has his Subject 9, which would give him how many secrets does he actually have? Yeah, he can actually play the Subject 9 into Kirin Tor double secret next turn. I think he has 4 secrets?
Yes,
yeah.
He has a counter spell as well. Which
does fill his hand. He's going to burn a card, but that's not a big deal. But getting the counter spell is important because it does mean that he can potentially strand something, though. Noblord, picking up that second preparation, is in a little bit of a better situation at potentially trying to protect his quest.
Well, what's really, yeah, exactly. That's, oh man.
There aren't that many.
You're right,
There aren't that many spells in this deck. It's basically just the preparations, the shadow steps, and the vanishes. So he'd need to have either preparation or shadow step effectively to counter the counter spell in order to get through, force through the spell he really wants to resolve.
Oh man, it really is decision point time because Noblord can. I mean, in Noblord's head, that is actually a really good draw because the South Sea deckhands and the preparation vanish #2 allows him to not only finish the quest but also destroys the subject 9.
Right, but the problem being that if he does play deckhand, prep, vanish, then he has just the quest against a face-up counterspell because of the subject 9. So that's ends up being really problematic for Noblord. He knows all the secrets that are in Viper's deck. So now also, now there's an explosive room. So it means that one of these deckhands is getting exploded if it comes down.
Right. And this is really tricky for Viper. Tricky from Viper if he doesn't play the counterspell because Noblord has to play with respect to it now.
Right.
And that fear is going to be creeping in the back of his mind. However, we are very quickly reaching that breaking point where Noblord might not have a chance anymore or does not have an opportunity to play around it.
Right.
There's 12 damage showing with the ability to just hero power in 2 turns.
Yep.
Sees the counter spell, and that was exactly what he was afraid of. But this Vanish #2 is going to buy him a little bit extra time.
Yeah, but the problem for Noblord here is he's still, because he had to, he hasn't actually, I don't think that's close to on. I don't think Viper's hero powered once.
Yeah, I don't think so.
So
actually, you're
Viper spent all of his mana on minions this game so far. So yeah, Jan'alai doesn't even do anything. But here, he's going to go ahead and get 2 more. Not just the 1. Oh, he's just moving them in between.
Yeah, Mirrority is not.
Okay, he's getting the ping
strong.
off. Okay, yeah. Well, specifically, I was trying to figure out was he going to play the second Guarantor for the free mirror entity, but he wants to start pinging because of the Jan'alai he's drawn.
Right, and it's also set to lethal too with Leroy plus the hero power, and that would be 14. So Noblord picking up that Elven Minstrel. It's solid, but what's scary is that this explosive rune is going to deal 4 damage. It deals the damage equivalent to what the Divine Shield minion receives, and then the excess is delivered. So, Divine Shield, even though it takes 0, still has to pay the price for that explosive runes.
It does. And now Noblord, he is in a pretty terrible spot here. I mean, he is dead to Leroy on the board. He doesn't know that there's necessarily that Leroy.
Right.
He could use his deckhands to clear off the Firefly and the Flame almost, but even just ping Leroy still kills him. So there's really no way out of this for Noblord, and he's just going to try to figure out, okay, I'm just going to try and dig. Finds his Iliax, which could be good later, but there's no later.
Yeah.
That's game.
And now you see why it's a difficult matchup, because Noblord did deal with a lot of the early game threats, even had an opportunity to finish the quest, but there's just too many problematic things from the Secret Mage, both aggressively and in disruption through that counterspell.
Yeah, that was the Subject 9 coming down was really what was backbreaking that game. Obviously, the early aggression is powerful and puts Noblord in the clock. That's fundamentally why the matchup is tough. But knowing that there was the counterspell there really meant that he couldn't play the sort of line that he was going for when he went with that early Vanish.
Yeah, that's right. So, again, this is one of the most one-sided matchups that you'll see in terms of the actual heads-to-head. We have Odd Mage's best matchup is 85 to 90% against Quest Rogue, and I think that goes to show you why. And even if Quest Rogue didn't receive one of its nerfs, I still think it would be a very difficult time.
Certainly.
Regardless if it was a 4-4 or 5-5.
Yeah, so much of what makes Quest Rogue powerful is its inevitability in long games, that you get to start making these 4-4s or 5-5s or whatever they are, and you don't get to play a long game because they are just playing their minions, hitting you in the face.
Yeah, well, the round 1 gambit here from Viper to target Noblord's tendency to bring slower decks is paying off. But we'll find out what happens when we come back to the HCT Winter Championships. Stay tuned for game number 2.
With the casters!
A hero that would win a battle royale, I mean, it's got to be Rexxar, right? He's got like the perfect aim.
I'm going to have to go for Rexxar.
He's got the steady shot.
He's just the best. He has all of the animal companions as extra friends, which I don't know if would count as cheating or not, but would get the job done.
What heroes would win in a battle royale? Well, Garrosh just does not seem to die ever in Warcraft lore, so he's my #1 pick.
Garrosh, I'm a fan of just going for the guy with the biggest muscles and the biggest hammers.
It's the brute force and gung-ho tactics are not how you win. The best way to consistently take that W is to play smart, perhaps hide every now and again when necessary, and only pick your smart fights. So I think the rogue style kind of plays towards that the best. So I'm going to go with Valera.
I think it might be Morgul the Oracle. He's kind of unassuming, so no one try and go for him first. He can control the elements, so I think that he could make himself a good hidey hole until he's, one of the last people left, and then take his opponents by surprise.
Wouldn't it be cool if Hearthstone was a battle royale, and there was this giant map, Hearthstone Land, we'll call it, circular map, a lot of cool Hearthstone stuff, basically all taverns, and you drop onto the map as just yourself, random guy, and on the map is a bunch of cards. And you pick up cards and you build a deck, and then every person you meet in Hearthstone Land, you battle with your deck, and the last person standing wins.
Tickets sold out days ago. Oh, that's too bad. If only there was someone around with tickets to sell, I'm sure they would be willing to make a deal. For gold. At triple the face value.
I will pay for that. For justice. Raffle tickets! Get your raffle tickets! Everyone gets a raffle ticket. Keep it ready for halftime. We have the greatest prize anyone's ever seen. Oh. Get your raffle! Wow. For justice! For justice! For justice!
Wow.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Hearthstone Championship Tour's Winter Championship. Viper currently leads 1-0 over Nodlord after using Secret Odd Mage to take down that Quest Rogue. And hopefully things will start looking up for Nodlord, and one of the decks that might help him do it is his Odd Warrior. That is a deck that, at least statistically across the board, looks pretty good. However, again, there's not much data on things like how Murloc Paladin and Malygos Rogue look against it, just because there's not many people playing those decks on ladder.
Yeah, it is one of the hallmarks of Viper's lineup is it does include a number of pretty unusual decks.
Right.
And that is a place that you can get edge against opponents who, they may have played 1,000 games against a typical version of a particular metagame deck. However, when you're playing against these lists that don't really show up very commonly on ladder, like this one that Viper's playing right here, Malygos Rogue. This is not a deck that you run into very frequently, and this is a deck that can kill you from 30 quite readily, which is something that makes it, potentially pretty powerful in this matchup against Quest Rogue. This is not something that I've ever played. These two decks are not ones that I decide, I'm gonna go jam some games of Malygos Rogue on ladder. Not my style exactly, but
you're more of a test rogue kind of guy.
Exactly. You know me well, Frodan.
I've watched your stream a handful of times and talked to you once. Yeah, the Quest Rogue versus Malygos Rogue has actually a pretty even split down the middle, and I think it largely has to do with their power spikes and how good they are at finding specific cards. So for Viper, the key card in his deck, in my opinion, is the Elven Minstrel, to make sure that he has the cards in hand. For people who are not familiar with Malygos Rogue's newest take, is that you utilize a card called Kobold Illusionist that has a death rattle of summoning a 1/1 copy of a minion in your hand. And obviously you're holding Malygos, so if you get out a 4-mana Kobold Illusionist, able to trigger its Death Rattle effect through Necreon Blade, which was mulliganed, or through Necreon Vial, you can get 1, 2, maybe even 3 copies of Malygos, and a single spell will basically kill them. And it's extremely powerful and explosive, but it's also very volatile, because you think Miracle Rogue of the past was very dependent on 1 or 2 cards, so like Auctioneer. This deck is extremely dependent on things like Elven Minstrel and making sure you have the right hand.
And so much of it is about just digging through your deck to find them. We see Roll the Bones as one of the key cards in his deck. It's not because he has a bunch of Death Rattles. His Death Rattle is that one you see on the screen, Code Illusion. Only one. You're only looking to pay your 2 mana in order to draw another card. Right. And that's why this deck has 2 copies of Shiv, 2 copies of Fan of Knives. It's just looking to draw through its deck as quickly as possible to assemble Cobalt Illusionist, Malagos, Necron Blade, boom.
Yes, and you know, I do think that Nodlord does have legitimate pressure opportunities if he's able to develop that quest pretty early on.
I mean, we see this here. You know, he's just playing the Lab Recruiter here for pressure. He just wants the 3-2 for 2. He's not trying to use it for any kind of fancy later on, you know, combo with resetting thing. No, he's just looking to put minions to the board and hit Viper. It's not a position that Quest Rogue typically is in, but this is a matchup where Quest Rogue is fundamentally the aggressor.
Roll again.
And we see, roll, re-roll. Didn't like what I got the first time.
Would you backstab this Elven Minstrel? Do you think that 3 life is really important to conserve at this point? Because Viper was okay with the first one, but I don't think he necessarily wants to play too aggressively with his life total, but it's still very early on.
Yeah, it's interesting because he potentially may want to hold on to backstab in order to give him an easy combo piece for Elven Minstrel.
That's true.
Because he doesn't want to sacrifice his preparations, which can be valuable later. Obviously, he doesn't want to use burn spells like Sinister Strike, but he does have double prep, and that Fan of Knives does not have a Minstrel, so he does decide to just fire that off and get that off the board.
Yeah, what's unfortunate, though, is that Viper, if he does not deal with it now, is going to take an additional 3 damage. So it's actually saving him 6 life, I think, from his perspective, unless he was willing to backstab the following turn. If he's willing to backstab the following turn, then why'd you even take that 3 damage in the first place?
Yes, it's just a little bit of a, do I want a little bit more information, or do I want to take, like you said, 6 damage? Because he could Fan of Knives stab it next turn. It's an opportunity.
Right. I don't like being in the low 20s.
No.
If I can stay pretty close to full. And Nodlord's taking the slow route for the quest, balancing his Novice Engineer. And this could be a nod to how slow Viper start has gotten, although it might get a lot quicker. That Elven Minstrel is a big-time draw, because if Viper picks up exactly that Cobalt Illusionist and Malagos, because he also could pick up the second Elven Minstrel, for example, the game might actually be over at that point.
Very close.
Because he already has 2 preparations.
Well, specifically he has Necron Vial, which is so powerful. Necron Vial gives you 2 additional Death Rattles, which means that you get 3 copies of the Illusionist. Because often you end up wanting to Necron Vial, then kill it with, say, a Backstab or an Eviscerate, and then you just add up additional damage to your opponent's face.
Well, I mean, so he can Eviscerate and then Elven Minstrel.
Yep.
He has 2 preparations, so for 6 mana, he'll have Cobalt Illusionist, Malagos.
There it is.
And the Necron Vial with 2 spells. So this game's actually already over.
So he doesn't have the Necron Blade. So he only is able to, he can play the Illusionist, prep Necron Violet. He only has 1 mana left over, which is Sinister Strike, Eviscerate, which is +10 to each of those. Yeah, no, that's actually.
Yeah, it's 20 plus 7.
It's 14 plus 11, right? It's 27.
Yeah, 27.
So it's actually not quite lethal.
Oh, it's not quite lethal. He's at 29.
Yeah. So, but again, that's just how close this game is to just being over, based on that single draw. There's a second Minstrel that actually gets nothing right now, because this deck is specifically built to always get its combo if you draw a Minstrel, because 1 Minstrel either draws you the entire combo or your other Minstrel. It's why one of the reasons that it doesn't play stuff like the Shiny Finder, which is in some versions of Malagos Rogue in order to find the Necron Blade to be able to set up that additional damage from the combo. However, it does mean that you have a chance of missing with your Elven Minstrel, which can give the deck a higher fail rate.
Right. And it's one of those things where Viper plays a little bit liberally with his first Eviscerate, right? He could have saved that, but he also wants to hold on to things like the evasion, because he doesn't know if Nodlord can stay out of range repeatedly and then start threatening him on the back end.
And the scary thing, the scariest thing for Viper is actually getting to the stage where Noblord can play Valera the Hollow, because it gives him multiple additional ways out of getting comboed. One is just the stealth. If the stealth just buys enough time for Noblord to just attack and get meaningful damage in.
Right. That is why one of the most...
Wow, he's eviscerating? Wait, what? What just happened?
Preventing the vanish. Punish.
Okay, sure. Wait.
No, he's at
no,
7 cards. Oh, he was at 8 cards, right? And then
would have been 8 cards. Okay, yeah. So that was the goal there. Was
Yeah.
he's using his eviscerate to not burn a card with vanish? But
couldn't you eviscerate the face?
It does seem like that's a better choice.
Oh, sorry. Less Sonya trades. Okay.
Okay, that's what it is. That's what it is.
That's actually fairly clever.
Yeah, I was just like trying to figure out what is going on here.
Yeah, no, because I was like because the Vanish came to the hand. I'm like, oh, it's the Vanish, but then he also had Sonya in the hand, and the more health that's on the board, the more Noblord can trade.
That is quite clever.
That is very, very smart, and
yeah,
and people might look at the Eviscerate and be like, well, you're just giving up your chance to win. The moment Viper draws a Razor Petal Volley, like that, this game is also like over. So I really like how Viper is not only able to recognize the situation, but also deny Noblord some of his best plays. Very intelligent.
Yeah, it's definitely a very unorthodox play from Viper there, but does respect the best possible card that Noblord could have to advance his quest, which is of course that Sonya. And there's a Sinister Strike, so
yeah, still kind of same boat, 26 damage. But the guys, again, goes to show you that Viper is very close. And the moment he picks up any other burst that can go with it, which looks like it's pretty much just Shiv and the Razor Petal Volleys, that'll be it. But there's also a lot of ways for him to continue stall. He has a second evasion. He has 2 vanishes himself.
And here, yeah, I expect that given the respect that Viper paid to the Sonya last turn, he will very likely just dagger and stab off the Divine Shield, not play that Elven Minstrel.
Yeah, why does he have to play this Elven Minstrel?
Right, there's no incentive. Last turn he played it because he needed to get wanted to get cards out of his hand, I suppose. Oh, he's going to play it this turn though.
I mean, it's not as threatening if it's just 2 health, because your opponent would just be able to get 2 copies of minions, and Noblord's right now focused on the Novice Engineer.
Sure, that's true. That's true, and that doesn't have Charger Rush.
Yeah, I mean, Noblord was thinking about insta-slamming the Sonya Shadow Dancer to get the copies of minions for his quest completion. However, he doesn't exactly have the cleanest minions to do it with either.
Right.
I mean, he has a Novice Engineer where he can trade in, but his Novice Engineer still, I think this is his 3rd.
I suppose there's also the concern that if you don't play the Minstrel this turn, that your opponent is likely to advance more to the quest and then can potentially like heal off of the say a Vicious Scalehide later on if you're forced to play it due to having a full hand.
Makes sense. Now we're getting the 4th bounce already preemptively. Oh, that's the 5th, excuse me.
Choose soon.
Pardon me, that's right. He bounced it one time before that as well with the Youthful Brewmaster. So that's going to be a finished quest next turn for Viper. All the more reason, perhaps, of why he has to take defensive measures and also start considering things like his evasion in future turns and the timing of exactly what you were talking about.
There's Vanish. So, Viper is now, again, not really in a spot where he's found any of that burst.
Right,
and Vanish doesn't really do a ton against Noblord. Obviously, it does bounce these, which are going to be 4/4s, but they don't cost very much to replay. And Noblord has Valera,
right,
which means that Viper is getting further in sort of a problem situation.
Yeah, the Valera the Hollow is the really scary thing for Viper now. If he can hold on to it, and I think that might be the big deciding factor of often why this matchup might look close percentage-wise, because if you can shut down your opponent's plays with Valera because they can't target it. Actually, the only way they can is Sinister Strikes, which would work, but they have to be at 26 or below. Huh, it's actually interesting the way that works out.
Was a man from
Viper sees also the 2nd Vanish, by the way, so this is him being more confident that, you know, perhaps he doesn't have as much ways to defend himself.
And the quest is already just completed, so there's no downside to playing this Elven Minstrel because Nobbler's at full health, so there's no Sonya concern here.
Right.
And there's no Scale Hide concern because, well, he can't heal above 30 anyway.
Right. But I mean, Nobbler also loses that like Stone Toe Spore, Sousy Deckhand, Vanish, and then burst for like 16 or more. So we'll see if Noblord or how Noblord chooses to do this. I think for one thing, with the evasion being played, he might be a little bit scared about the Valera timing. He might say, is this time now to Valera? Because he does have some pretty good stuff in his hand already. So burning a card wouldn't be the end of the world here. Because he is at 10.
Yeah, the Valera here does protect him if they're, if Viper is just waiting for, one more card to actually end the game. Valera's powerful here. Crystal Core, though, allows him to, does allow him to push some damage.
Sees the evasion. It's a lot of it's the timeout. It's the ice block for the class. And Nobbler's gonna take that risk. Says, you know what? You got me, but I need to do this.
Yep. And Viper finds Necrium Blade.
That's pretty big.
It is.
That is very, very
He can
big.
actually Vanish Blade hit the face.
Yes, instead of a 27. And that is really, really important.
So I believe then if Noblord draws the other deckhand or a bounce spell, he wins because Viper's at 13. And he'd be able to play deckhand.
Well, one of the trickier things too is even if he didn't have it, Viper also has that Glacial Shard on the board, so you just freeze the face and they can't attack.
Well, you can hero power.
Oh yeah, you're right.
You can always hero power to replace your Necrium Blade and get the Death Rattle effect.
There you go. Yeah, you have the mana to do that. So in this position then, what's the best hedge for Viper in this spot? I don't really know if there is one. I think you just gotta go for it.
There once was a man from Gildan.
He just wants to get the extra damage on board in case he needs to punch through some minions.
But doesn't playing this against an opponent who has Vicious Scale Hide?
That's okay because he gets 3 copies of Malagos with the double Necrium Vial. Actually, this is just game then, right? Because the Malagos
was 32.
Yeah.
So he plays Cobalt Illusionist, Prep Vial, Hero Powers or Swings.
Yep, it's 36.
Yeah, I think it's actually just enough damage.
No, it's just absurd
damage. You're at 30. Wait, is it? Hold on, because he's not doing it. Wait. Hold on. Each of those is plus 15, right? If he does it that way.
Yeah. Because it's okay. So Necrium Vial plus a Necrium Blade is 3 Malagos, and so that's 15 plus 15 for the spell damage plus the
it's 36.
It's 36.
Isn't it?
I think Viper wasn't 100% sure that you could target it.
He may have just not been looking for that.
So when Valera the Hollow is played as a battle cry, you gain stealth, which means you can't target it with abilities like Fireball or Frostbolt or Kill Command. But things that target things automatically can still hit it, just like a Deadly Shock can hit a Stranglethorn Tiger. So as far as my recollection goes, this should still be lethal the previous turn, and I think Viper just made extra sure that was the case. And Nobbler's like, oh man, he has it. He has everything.
Yeah, it's just the enemy hero. The enemy hero, doesn't matter if they're stealthed or not, but regardless, Viper has 3 Malagos into Sinister Strike, and he leads 2-0 in this match.
Yeah, that is brutal for Noblord. He needed that victory desperately because Quest Rogue is a problematic deck for him to get through in this series. And with that, Murloc Paladin is all that remains. Viper and his risky lineups is quickly becoming one of my favorite things about competitive Hearthstone, because you saw him bring that controlled Dragon Shaman in the playoffs to absolutely wreck the field in a time where people basically say Shaman is unplayable ever since the Shutterwalker.
Yeah, and it's interesting because, Viper is someone who is very well known for playing sort of anti-control style lineups, playing very controlling or basically control decks or Miracle Rogue is what he's mostly known for. So it took a lot of players off guard bringing this lineup here, and Noblord certainly one of them who planned his lineup around trying to beat what he expected Viper to play, and well, nothing close to what he actually brought.
And remember that Viper also has qualified for the World Championship based off his performance in the winter season, and so he doesn't necessarily have a lot of pressure on him. He says, yeah, I want to play obviously for the money and the glory, but I already got my spot in the World Championship, so he's taking it easy, but maybe that's helping him because he looks like he's, well, outside of that one missed turn, he's brought a really cool lineup and he's playing really well.
Well, his attitude actually was not, oh, I'm already qualified, I don't really care. It was, I want to win. I want to win everything, and I'm not bringing this as some sort of, test, because actually Noblord was hypothesizing that, well, did he bring aggro decks here so we can't just put him on control decks for Worlds? Right. Just trying to expand his range of what we can expect. And no, he's just like, I just think these are the best decks for me to bring to this tournament, so that's what I'm doing, because I always want to win.
All right, well, winning is what Viper is doing. He's up 2-0. Noblord has to reverse sweep Murloc Paladin, which we haven't seen in quite some months. So when we come back to the HCT Winter Championship, we'll find out what's going to happen in this initial match.
With the developers.
Of all the cards in Hearthstone, I would say probably my favorite from an aesthetic standpoint, or certainly from an art standpoint, would be Archmage Antonidas. That one was just a perennial favorite of mine. From the very first release of the set, it was a card that meant a lot in that we hadn't seen a lot of him in World of Warcraft, but to actually get to realize him in the flesh, so to speak, in a full color version, if not for the first time, then certainly I think the most epic time, through the art of Wayne Reynolds. I ended up loving the piece so much that I ended up purchasing the original from him, and it currently hangs in my studio at home, and I love the piece.
Probably the Inquisitor. That one I actually had to double check and make sure that that was the final art because it looked like something out of a Del Toro movie.
One of my favorite looking cards from Witchwood was Blood Witch, just because it was a really well done style, and it kept this idea of both like evil and cute going on a gnome, and I'm not normally huge on gnomes.
Medivh is probably one of my favorite cards, just because he looks so jovial. He's holding his cup, he's so happy. He's just like, yeah, it's party time, let's go, let's have a good time. So I really enjoy that art.
The Cabal Shadow Priest is one of the oldest cards, but her golden animation has her like taking control of someone, and it's like a purple glow. It's just super cool to me.
One of my favorite pieces of art from Mean Streets of Gadgetzan was Cabal Crystal Runner. I've always been a fan of Draenei, and it does a really great job of conveying this sort of like frantic need to get a job done or a task done. It works really well with the theme of the set.
Countess Ashmore, just beautiful art. The full-blown piece of her is just fantastic, like her in the forest, is super cool.
Another piece I really enjoy a lot is actually Cobalt Librarian by Matt Dixon. There's so much going on in that piece. He's a librarian, which is very serious usually. They always tell you, shh, be quiet. But he's standing there and he has this wonder in his eye and looking around at all these books and all this knowledge in front of him, and then he accidentally sets everything on fire.
By earth, by air, rain and fire. The only things a real troll desire. First to smash and to mash and to bash and maybe mangle. Here it's strangle. Thorn, you'll be warned, my lord's gonna trash ya. Say your prayers with voodoo, bashi bashi. Time for fun, we're gonna run ya through. Too bad for you.
It's only once a generation.
One victor wins the confrontation.
Standing here, got no fear. I'm the best in the arena.
Man, you never seen a hero cut you down to zero.
Victory is no joke. Careful at your door.
Cloak.
Get your stars. Our star is born. Here in Stranglehold.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Hearthstone Championship Tour's Winter Championship initial match between Viper and Noblord in Group A, where the winner will go on and play in the winner's match. For today, we are going to do all the initial matches for all the groups. And if you guys missed game number 2, it was Malygos Rogue versus Quest Rogue. Do want to make a small correction to the last couple turns there. One thing that Kibler and I were tunneling so much was the Cobalt Illusionist and Malygos. We ignored the fact that Elemental can also be pulled as a minion.
Yeah, that is a big part of the minimum minion build, is ensuring that you don't have any minion potentially glutting your hand when you need to go for the combo, because Cobalt Illusionist is a random minion in your hand. Well, if there's 2, that's not necessarily a Malygos. You could end up with a 1/1 Minstrel. That's bad. So
that's right. I mean,
Viper wasn't miscounting anything. We were the idiots. And he did it perfectly.
Well, I mean, you even brought it up. You said that's why we don't even play shiny Cavern.
Right, exactly.
Right?
You want to be ensured that you have the maximum possibility of getting those things through. And Viper didn't want to take any risks. There's no reason. He knew 100% chance next turn, so go for it.
He is a rogue expert on many reasons for exactly what you just saw. Now, we'll turn into a matchup that I gotta say I have never seen yet. It is the Murloc Paladin versus the Quest topsy-turvy one-turn kill Stone Dust Board.
You mean this isn't representative of all of your ladder games?
No, this is a segment on Who's Me Reign Supreme, which Firebat would be playing the Paladin, and someone like me or you would be playing a Quest Priest.
Well, this specifically is not. This isn't some sort of grindy Quest Priest. This is topsy-turvy Quest Priest, which, if you're not familiar, uses combination of Radiant Elemental to reduce the cost of your spells, the Test Subject plus Vivid Nightmare, and Topsy-Turvy to generate a bunch of buffs for your Stone Tusk Boar. And you because you can keep doing this on your Test Subject, keep loading these up, you can actually get more and more of them, so you can continue to make additional copies of Stone Tusk Boar, make them even bigger, and eventually just kill your opponent. But that takes time. And like we've been saying quite a bit in this particular matchup, Viper's lineup is not intended to give Noblord time. In fact, it is intended to do quite the opposite and kill him as fast as possible.
Yeah, I do find this kind of funny that Viper threw away the Nightmare Amalgam and just got a Nightmare Amalgam right back. So we've all been there for sure. The thing is, can Noblord deal with the Gentle Megasaur? Because, the thing about this Topsy-Turvy Priest deck is that it is relatively light on removal. It's a deck that favors insane card draw and combo pieces, and perhaps even a little bit too reliant on Amara, Warden of Hope, in order to get the clear as well. So with Noblord having 2 Mass Hysteria and Psychic Screams, he might be very dependent on drawing those cards even more than his combo pieces.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Viper, again, is just looking to close the game out. And specifically, as we were talking before, he played Murloc Paladin because it doesn't have so many 1-health minions. It is not reliant on building up a board of Silverhand recruits like Odd Paladin, or sometimes even It has 1/2s for 1. It has 3/4s for 3, and it has the Gentle Megasaur to take advantage of those sticking at all. Right. Noblord's deck is going to spend time trying to get to the later stages of the game and wants to hit its Mass Hysterias and Psychic Screams, and Viper's looking to close the door on him before that can happen. Ooh, Coin Blessing of Kings on the Murloc with the Megasaur means that potentially Viper can have a Wind Fury come down as the adapt for the Megasaur here. Just looking to get as much damage in as quickly as possible and keep Noblord from getting his card draw and assemble his combo, or more crucially, find his removal.
Yeah, that's the thing about this Murloc Paladin. Remember, we actually did see Murloc Paladin versus a deck that functions a little bit similarly to how the Quest Priest was, which is Reno Jackson. And a lot of times, the Murloc Paladin would just set up a huge board even after if you healed to full.
Right.
And it would just hit you for like 35 afterwards. So, Viper is going to have a very tall, intimidating board if Noblord continues to let it expand, but it's not like he has much of a choice.
Right. And I believe that's 4 Death Rattles for Noblord toward his quest.
Right.
Usually you see people hold the Radiant Elementals because they're so important to get the later stages of the game as part of your combo. However, Noblord wants as much board presence as possible here to try to combat Viper's board, because he doesn't have the time to get to the late stages of the game if he just tries to hold on to those combo pieces for later.
Exactly. He still can get it done. He still has a Radiant Elemental, 2 Shadow Visions, and a Vivid Nightmare, so if things work out pretty well, that could go in his favor. Also, if he's able to stick Amara onto the board, that is a potential way for him to, potential path to victory. But I think that potential is slipping away with each passing turn. This is so much damage.
Seance is actually kind of interesting. He can steal a Righteous Protector, which can absorb a bit of damage.
Okay, I like that.
So Righteous Protector and killing one of these at least absorbs 4 damage, which has to it has to be at least a little bit appealing.
Yeah, it's just that if you can complete the quest, Seance with Amara is just exactly what you're looking for.
Right, that's often how you beat minion-based decks. You're not looking to go nuts with your combo. You're just like, okay, eventually you do, but it's not assembling as fast as possible is not how you win. You win by getting to Amara and just stopping them from being able to kill you, using your removal to clear up their board, and then okay, well I have tons of time now.
Right. Noblord has one more test subject. He can drop. Basically, there's 2 loot hoarders and a test subject, and then finish the quest. But he's leaving up 10 on the board, and if his opponent has a Gentle Megasaur, which he does, there's a pretty decent chance this game is over. Does Noblord have a choice, though?
Yeah, I don't know that he has. The play that I sort of alluded to as a possibility, at least, Seance into that, does give him, okay, I like this. So this means that heal here means he still has test subject.
Oh!
Well, that's not going to be lethal, right?
That is still a lot of damage.
Yeah, but a lot of damage doesn't mean anything if you're Amaraing next turn.
That's true. That's right.
So right now, Megasaur, Wind Fury is the game on the spot. And +3 attack.
That's exactly what Noblord was playing around.
Right, by healing himself means +3 attack does not kill him. So this play from Noblord.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So rather than this being 10 + 6 lethal, it means that, okay, he gets to still spend his next turn playing that second test subject, playing the Amara into this.
And then what starts getting really scary, too, is, how long will Viper allow things like the test subject and the Radiant Elementals to survive onto the board? Because, Topsy Priest, if you underestimate it, just say, you know what, I'm just going to keep hitting their life total aggressively and ignore their minions on board, they get some real crazy stuff. I mean, hypothetically, Noblord could have lethal next turn if he already preemptively played 3 mana worth of minions.
And Viper's taking his time figuring out, okay, he wants the attack, which is not necessarily 100% obvious.
Right.
Because, if he knows, okay, well, he's going to play an Amara next turn. Now, but this gives him just a lot of damage after that as well.
Exactly. And Noblord does have that Amara available to him, because I think test subject number 2 will complete the quest, and then he can play it. Does he draw first?
There's a little bit of awkwardness of playing his second test subject as far as his ability to be at least guaranteed he can complete his combo later.
That's true, but
one interesting thing from Viper's perspective, should Viper have killed the Radiant Elemental?
That's kind of what I was thinking.
Yeah, like if he knows that Amara is coming down, Amara has to come down, right? So should you use the 6 damage from your Amalgam to kill the Radiant Elemental to stop any potential shenanigans here?
No, I think that's a really good point. And more importantly, like, if Noblord is is that a second powered shield?
That's actually well, it's not a really big deal because the Tide Collar still becomes 12 here, right?
Yeah,
with the Merlot.
Okay.
But it could be. There's a world in which that actually does matter. A second Megasaur. But because of the double powered shield, he has to play War Leader to get through the Amara.
Well, there's also a chance that the Juggle might snipe one of these 1-health minions.
It did. So now, so okay, he's cleared off both test subjects. So now, in order for Noblord,
he has to revive it now.
But he has to revive it when he can go off. In order for him to actually be able to get his combo off, now Viper's just playing anti-combo defense because Noblord is forced into the position to play both test subjects.
That said, Viper's hand is looking very weak after this. So if Noblord does have that mass hysteria.
Yeah.
And when you start having more than 3 minions or 4 minions onto the board, the math starts to exponentially increase with the possible outcomes.
Right.
I tried to hear Monsanto one time talk about the possible variance and permutations of attacks that Mass Hysteria will do with like 4-on-4 minions. And he said something stupid like, you know, like millions of possibilities. And it's like, okay, I can't really fathom that. So, you know, I think Noblord might end up just pulling the trigger defensively and then has an opportunity to stick some minions onto the board.
Yep.
The question is do you trade beforehand or do you just attack after?
It's weird because if you... Oh, is this like that was not great for Noblord here.
Yeah, I don't know if this Deadbringer actually does anything except put some... Oh, it draws a Blood Mage Downhouse. That is...
All right,
that is a good draw here for Viper.
It is. Gonna go ahead and get
that is
Wind Fury.
Wind Fury is very good.
Wind Fury's 12 right now.
Is it worth protecting your Tide Caller? Probably not. I mean, it's 6 damage you're missing, but at the same time, you are out of cards. You need to conserve your resources.
It does, but if you know that your opponent has Blood Mage Thalnos, it means that you're, I guess, you're potentially giving up 6 damage if your opponent just like Spirit Lashes you.
Yeah, there is no...
your opponent's going to attack that anyway and Spirit Lash you.
Yeah, I mean, there is no Spirit Lash in hand, but I think
right,
you're right.
But as far as like what are the sort of things that can go bad here? Like how important is that Tide Caller to you? What are these cards likely to be?
Right.
He's going for the Twilight's Call. All right. Isn't this his second Twilight's Call?
Yes.
So he can't get another test subject now, right?
Well, he could have. Yeah, he can't get it now. I think his hope was maybe like a Seance or something.
Yeah, because he could get a test subject and Seance it. Right. Is his goal?
Too
his goal there?
Too many Deadringers are in the pool. Like 2 died in the beginning. Then he revived 2 more.
Yeah. Well, right. Exactly. His pool is so many Deadringers.
And then he played 1 more. So it's like 5 Deadringers, a Loot Hoarder, and 2 test subjects. It's like, well, yeah, statistically, it's going to be Deadringer most of the time. 12 plus 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 22 with the Gentle Megasaur. So not enough for Viper to close this game out, but he can put his opponent on a 2-turn lethal. That Shadow Vision's draw is very big for Noblord, and
but like
it can help him find the Psychic Scream.
But what does the question is, what does he even do at this point? Is he gonna win by seancing a Megasaur and beating him down with it? I'm just trying to piece together because he's cast both Twilight's Calls. He's played both test subjects.
Actually,
he cannot generate additional test subjects.
Maybe
There's
you're
no
right.
way, right?
No, well, if he does, let's say he does Seance something.
Oh, there we go.
Well, if
ride the Ziliax to victory.
I mean,
Ziliax Seance it. Get another one.
In all seriousness, he could just get a Megasaur, flip it with the Topsy-Turvy Divine Spirit, and then try to pressure that way.
I'm not saying that Noblord is out of this by any means, because there are like these corner case bizarre scenarios that can come up of just I'm going to kill you with minions with my combo deck.
Right.
But his primary road to victory, I believe, is completely gone.
Ends up going with Psychic Scream over the Spirit Lash. He had the Spirit Lash with Blood Mage Thanos and Stone Dust board. Not very reliable.
Oh,
Divine
dear.
Favor.
Oh, and we see the pain on Noblord's face. Woo. That's getting Hall of Fame, but not just yet.
Yeah.
Not before it draws 5, 6 cards for Viper.
Ooh, Noblord is like, oh, man, if only I fast forward the clock to April. Oh, man. That is brutal, to say the least. And now Viper does not have to worry about hand economy issues, because if he was drawing 1 card per turn, that actually gave Noblord a legitimate chance to find an opportunity to stick a minion. And with this, I mean, Noblord does have a way to strike back with the Ziliax Seance combination, which can magnetize onto itself, but he needs a little bit of setup and time.
Yeah, he's got to just figure out, okay, previously, before that Divine Favor, he was like, all right, Viper's low on cards. Maybe I can assemble something like you mentioned, the Ziliax Seance. Maybe I can, win this game in a bizarre, honest way with my combo deck. But now, with just a bunch of cards in hand for Viper, that is looking so unlikely.
Looking for any semblance of a game plan here. Noblord has nothing.
He's just getting in there with the board.
Yeah, well, if you stick the board onto the board, it gives Noblord the ability to trade and maybe like make Ziliax stay alive. But that call to arms just allows Viper to pull out more cards from his deck. And remember, Viper still has that second Divine Favor we haven't really mentioned, which gives him the ability to feel a little bit more aggressive with how he uses his resources.
This may look weird. I've been attacking into Blood Mage down this. This is, again, to play around the threat of Spirit Lash, which Noblord finds.
Yep. Also, Noblord has to test for the secret. Sees that it's not redemption. This will see that it's not noble sacrifice.
He already found no sacrifice, no divine shield thing.
Yeah,
so now it's hidden wisdom. I believe it's Eye for an Eye or Hidden Wisdom are the two things that it could be.
Right.
And I think that he is unlikely to suspect Eye for an Eye. But here, yeah, Seance gonna get Hidden Wisdom. 2 more cards for Viper.
Oh man, it's brutal.
And despite the fact that Viper's brought so many cards, he has been Psychic Scream twice, so he still has so many more cards left in his deck.
Right.
Not to mention that just like he even if they were at similar points in fatigue, the hero power making Silverhand recruits is just eventually going to kill the priest.
I kind of wonder what Noblord's saving the topsy-turvy for. I think if I were in the position, I'd kind of want to try and maximize his potential to survive. But
he's going to maximize his time here. Hack things up, and Viper was the favorite coming in under both players' perspectives and takes a solid 3-0 win in the first game of this group.
Yeah, this felt like a deck-building victory to me more than anything. And, what I love about it, it wasn't just the usual aggressive lineup that we see, which is Odd Rogue. We might see, a Hunter deck. We might see Odd Paladin instead. But Viper chose very unusual stuff. The Malygos Rogue, the Murloc Paladin, and even Secret Automage is not a very popular deck that you see outside of maybe when you play on ladder. And Viper is one of 2 people to bring it for this event. So I think Viper made the fantastic call, which seems to be one of his strengths. He's a very good technical player, but he also is able to make the proper meta reads for tournaments, which has been helping him this year go so far in many events.
Yeah, he's brought some very unusual decks to a number of events so far, and it's really paid off. So, he may be looking to steal another spot for the World Championship.
All right, well, Viper is our winner for the initial kickoff match of the Winter Championship. He's waiting for a couple words on his victory.
Thanks very much, guys. Yeah, I'm joined by Viper after his 3-0 victory over Noblord. And that was a pretty good sweep. And I want to ask a question about that last game. You saw that he was forced to use both test subjects. What was going through your mind there? Did your game plan change after that, or did you know you had the victory?
My game plan kind of changed because after he used both test subject, I tried to figure out, okay, how can he actually win this game? He already used one of the other combo parts on turn 3. So even winning with the Resurrect spell to get a test subject back was very difficult to impossible, I think. And after he used the second Resurrect spell, I was like, okay, I'm just going to clear all his minions and I think I win. And it seemed like that's just what happened.
Yeah, and you brought the Murloc Paladin, and a lot of players were kind of questioning you for that decision because Odd Paladin exists, and it's a good variation of aggressive Paladin. Why did you decide to bring Murloc Paladin over the Odd Paladin in this event?
I think Odd Paladin is just not aggressive enough to actually beat all the combo decks. For example, all the good priest decks right now, all the priest decks you want to beat, they run Spirit Lash, and one Spirit Lash at turn 2, 3, 4 kind of can beat Odd Paladin, so I just wanted to play the more aggressive deck. Odd Paladin is actually not that good in beating slower decks, it just beats other aggro decks.
And final question, also related to your lineup. I picked you to win as a prediction. I love the Malygos Rogue, but there's some people that are like, where does it fit in his lineup? Why did he bring this deck? It's not very good. Why did you decide to bring Malygos Rogue to this event of all things, and how does it fit into your lineup?
To be honest, the thing what aggro decks in general want to do is beat combo decks and kind of beat the slower controllish decks, right? And Malygos Druid is the most extreme deck that it just almost auto wins against anything that's not aggro. Like it's faster than any other combo deck, and it beats most of the control decks because they don't really have counterplay to it. I mean, you cannot out armor the damage potential of the deck. You can't really Mojo Master them because they have 30 damage of 6 mana, and it just really fitted in terms of being an aggro combo deck kind of.
well, we'll see if more players decide to bring in the future. But congratulations on your 3-0, and good luck in your matches later in the week. But with that, let's send it back over to the boys at the desk.
Thank you very much, TJ and Viper. I just got to say that I love Viper's attitude. You can hear his thoughts, very intelligent guy. But man, does him and TJ are like two peas in a pod. They kind of dress similar. They both got the nice beard, very fun and wholesome conversation.
I think Viper's a little more serious than TJ.
Yeah,
but
a little,
a little bit, just a little bit.
Yeah. But TJ's also known for his serious demeanor at all times. Obviously. We're just getting started here. That was our first match of many. We have 8 initial matches for all 4 groups, and that is just the first in the books. If you're a Noblord fan, don't worry, he'll come back through the lower bracket. But until then, we're going to march on through Group A. Coming up next, we have Yueying from China going up against Tansoku from Japan. And if you missed it, Viper was able to defeat Noblord by a score of 3-0. Don't go anywhere. More Hearthstone Championship Tour Winter Championship action continues right after this.
Coming up, Yueying versus Tansoku.
いやーもう本当にその中国勢の情報ってなかなかそうですね入ってこないので、もう彼に関して知ってることはもうないですね。デッキ相性的にはちょっといいかなって思ってるので、まあそうですねそんな感じですね。
这次我带的所有的都没有说去特地的去针对某些卡组，就是我觉得我带的自己是觉得最满意的构筑，然后也不会去针对某些人，因为我觉得应该要一套好的卡组应该谁都可以打，所以我就没有去特地针对谁。就是我之前有一套蓝龙德的话，可能打他的这几套卡组都算是个劣势，尤其是他的偶数数还有骑士，所以我觉得只要我的蓝龙德能够走掉，我觉得应该能赢。
自分のそうですね持ち込んだデッキが全部ドルイドに対して強いデッキなので。で、そうですね、相手の、ドルイドを、ターゲットにできるんじゃないかなって、思います。
We are back with some more Group A matches. I am Raven, and joining me is Sottle. It becomes a bit of a rare occurrence nowadays, I would say, but I'm happy at least to be on this desk back with you again.
I know, I've missed you, buddy. We've had some time apart. I've been having to deal with loud Americans instead, so nice to bring a little bit of British class back to the casting desk.
Yeah, and I think the break's done us good overall, I would say. If you're saying nice things to me already, I am quite happy, but I'm also happy with the matchup we've got coming up. It is going to be Tansoku versus Yueying, and I'm excited to see this one, as I always am when we see Tansoku play. I feel like he's been a staple at HCT for quite a long time now.
He has, yeah. I thought he had been qualified for more events than he actually had, and that's not to do him a disservice. He has been here very frequently, but like you said, he feels like he's part of the furniture at this point, and is a player that we've got intimately familiar with. Yueying less so. He's part of this new wave of Chinese players, I like to look at it, people who have really supplanted the thrones of the old guard, like the Omega Zeros and the Jason Joes that we've seen. We've seen a whole new wave of powerful Chinese players this year, and Yueying chief amongst them.
Yeah, and we're seeing multiple waves of different types of decks and lineups as well. We can check out what the players have brought, because I feel like in this tournament specifically, I feel like every player has a different opinion on what a good lineup should be. And, these are no different with Tonsoku, for me, sticking out quite a lot because he's one of the only players who's brought the combo priest. And when we asked him about it, he was surprised. He was like, I don't know why other people haven't brought this deck. It is very, very powerful.
Well, I mean, remains to be seen because from my perspective, it's the weak point of his lineup for this matchup at least against Yu Ying. If you were watching during the break, we had a little media piece there leading into this where the players spoke about their respective lineups and they both said, I think we both potentially have a weak deck coming out here. Yu Ying is worried about his Malagos Druid, which my analysis says he's spot on. I think that's the weak point for him as well, but it's that Inner Fire Priest on Tansoku's side that's going to be tough for him to get through from my perspective.
All right, well, let's find out anyway, because those decks are available. As we said, we did see the bans on the screen, but I believe we are ready to just get right into the match. Tansoku versus Yu Ying. I like you said, I'm just excited to see exactly how this priest deck does.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes down to it in the head-to-head, if you look at those two problem decks, like the Mali Druid and the Inner Fire Priest, maybe that's the matchup where Tansoku has to really look at to get his Inner Fire Priest a win, because that is the idea. For you're not getting hit with those naturalizers. If you're making huge health minions, Druid is not going to have a good time dealing with that.
Yep, let's see how we go, though. Yu Ying is going to start off on the Hunter and Tansoku on the Paladin, which is the even Paladin. As you can see again, maybe for one of the last times on the screen there, as the new announcement has come out of them being put into the Hall of Fame. But for now, let's focus on...
Poor old Genjamin, honestly.
That makes me laugh every time, and I honestly don't really know why.
That's why I said it. To be fair, I am fully on board with the Gen and Baku rotation idea, but I just like saying Genjamin.
Okay, I've got no follow-up for that one, but Yu Ying, on the other hand, has a great early opening here. The Candle Shot to help deal with some of the Paladin tokens. The Hyena, along with the infamous combo of Hyena Springport with the Razormaw as well.
And I love this straight away from Yu Ying. So many people, I think, would have been potentially just baited into playing their curve here, but Paladin... Really going back to the beginning of time, there's been this key glaring hole in their game plan that you really have to learn, which is they cannot interact with minions early on. They don't have a 2-mana weapon or a fast minion that can come out and take care of, like a Merc Spark Eel kind of card that can swing board states like this. So if you can manipulate a huge threat onto the board immediately, you can really start running wild with a minion like Scavenging Hyena.
Yeah, and especially just with the follow-up, Springport or Razormaw. So there are just options here for Yu Ying as to, depending on what Tansoku chooses to do this turn, he can just pull anything out the bag, and either way it's going to be quite the powerful turn. Now we get to see what decides, and even now there is an option to actually kill off this 2/2 instead.
Yeah, double Springport, definitely not the worst idea in the world here. Razormaw perhaps gives you more diversification of your threats, but again, I go back to that same point. It's not really until turn 4 that even Paladin is going to have any way of interacting with this growing Hyena, so certainly would not blame Yu Ying for going all in here with the double rushing Springport.
Yeah, and I do like it, I think, because the Razormaw can whiff, or at least just not be great in this scenario, and I'd rather just not have that happen when you have a perfectly powerful turn that isn't rolling the dice a little bit and is just saying, well, this will guarantee happen. I put my Hyena. There's no real answer here, so at least I get to push some damage early game.
I was trying to get my brain to reconcile the idea of just going Candle Shot there with the Springport instead. You sacrifice 2 damage this turn on the Hyena because only 1 minion will die, but you have that front-loaded Candle Shot on the following turn, but I don't think it provides you any more beneficial situations on the turn 3, so yeah, I like the double Springport line.
Yeah, and I think the biggest deal as well is it's never too bad holding on to a Candle Shot when you have other options, because that one source of damage much later on a potentially bigger minion can actually save you so much more health than killing a 1/1.
Right. Now, Yu Ying does have to be a little bit worried. This is really a key moment for playing this Hunter deck. If you've gone all in on an early Hyena, you have to recognize the point where a Hyena has to get really big to kill your opponent before they can do anything about it, right? Like, by all means, cash in this free early damage that I was talking about against Paladin, but now you really have to consider the idea of playing for the board as well, because now Spellbreaker, Blessing of Kings, and so on come into play, and perfect sequencing from Yu Ying on the adaptation. Attacks first. If he picks up Wind Fury still applies. He nets the same damage as he would have done by doing it early, but by attacking first, he gives himself this incredibly crucial stealth option.
Yeah, the very powerful, you know, the outcome of getting +3 attack or +1/1 does not outweigh this stealth. This is the best pick, mainly because we can see the Spellbreaker on the far left. You might think, well, you know, yes, the Spellbreaker kill a minion, then, you know, it's still a 2/2. Beast that's left on the board, well, it's a lot scarier when it's a 6/4 that is only going to keep growing. And to be honest, at this point, Sol, maybe even just end the game.
Very, very possibly, and I think it's a great recognition from Yu Ying. I said it's the time where he has to consider not just damage, but how to consolidate his board, and that was the perfect way of doing it. He just says, you know what, I'll sacrifice the potential of some damage with +3 attack, and I'll look for the stealth out instead, because that's the only thing that was going to protect him against not only Blessing of Kings, but in this case, specifically Spellbreaker.
And this Springpaw draw was huge because the numbers then add up that you can actually kill off.
Oh, I need a moment. Oh, I need a moment. Raven. Oh,
Hunter goodness. I love it. And there's the concede straight away from Tonsoku. He just cannot do anything. And as you quite rightly said, Sol, even Paladin does not have game early on versus decks that do. And that just ran away with it for Yu Ying, yeah. But very heads-up play, and I especially like that attack before the Razor Maul came down.
It's exactly the kind of Hearthstone game that will get a bad reputation, right? You drew a strong opener. It looked like you made 0 decisions and you won the game. It's not what happened. That game was losable.
Yeah.
If he hadn't have chosen to coin out the hyena in the first place, could have been a different story. But that crucial moment was attacking first before the Razor Maul. That was huge because he had to recognize that stealth was the very best outcome in that position, and he did just that.
And I think this is one of the big holes I've seen for a long time now in even Paladin. I feel like every time we're on this desk, I ask the question of, why do people bring this deck? And I think the general answer, it's just an all-rounder. It can do well against late game, it can fight for some early game, and mainly just the powerful mid game it has. But when it does line up against a deck that just does one thing very well, it just always seems to fall over, at least in my experience.
I know this is your least favorite topic, but you do really get into fourth deck territory. You know, it's something that we will start to see very differently in the latter half of 2019 when we move to specialist format. Conquest forces you to bring a certain number of decks, and it's hard to build 4 decks that perfectly fit a strategy that you're trying to execute. So therefore, your third and fourth decks sometimes just look a little bit weak, but that's because the perfect options aren't there, and that's something that the single deck format...
We need more good decks!
Single deck format with specialists can potentially go some way to allow people make more concise strategies with their lineup.
Yeah, and we are not wasting any time here. We're going to be moving straight on to the next game. It's going to be Yu Ying versus Tonsoku. Yu Ying currently needing 1-0, going for the odd rogue against this even Paladin. Double Diamol in the opening hand, Sol. Who needs Cold Bloods anymore?
The face of terror, Diamol.
It's true. If I was Tonsoku and I saw that opening hand, I wouldn't know what to do with my life right then.
But again, you look at that card on the far right, Vicious Fledgling, colloquially known as the Flappy Bird. It's, again, a huge problem for a deck like even Paladin to deal with because they just don't have fast options turn 1 to 3 to be able to shut minions like that down. The only way they can deal with a minion like that is to be ahead of the play when it comes down. Guess what prevents that from happening? 2 Diamols.
Exactly. Wild Pyromancer's the earliest minion that directly competes, along with the Swampoos, but those are cleaned up by the Diamols, as you said. So, you know, Yu Ying even has just a get out of jail free card. If worst case scenario happens, never mind just the average chance of them not having that card early on. Choice of secrets here. Hidden Wisdom probably not going to get used auto defense matrix. It's going to be valuable just to try and stem those attacks and just stop them peeling off minions, and most importantly, protecting this Hydrologist, hopefully. Oh god, the hits just keep coming. Yu Ying now just has a choice of exactly what he wants to do with this opener. Does he want a slightly beefier minion? Does he want the minion that can run away with the game? He's chosen for the latter in the form of the Vicious Fledgling.
Yeah, you have 4 3-drops in your hand and a coin and 2 mana. I think I want to start jamming 3-drops onto the board as early as possible. And again, I'm sorry, I've already beaten this point into the ground, but really the only reason Yu Ying has the freedom to be able to do this is the fact that he knows Paladin just cannot answer this on turn 3.
This turn's a little bit more interesting, though, with the potential of Diamol hero power being very, very strong. Doesn't mean you just automatically go, Flappy Bird again, you know, and I do like this play. Let's just find out what the secret is, and also you still develop a very powerful minion on the board, even though it is just a 1-drop. Most importantly, the fledgling gets to hit face, and a master of stealth. I'm choosing to believe Yuying is, as that is just 2 in a row that have been very impactful in the series already.
Yeah. I'd like to sell you a line about how much skill was involved in that stealth pick, but nope, he just hit face and rolled stealth. That's what happened there.
I wish I was that skilled.
Me too, Raven.
The problem now is we look at Tonsoku's hand. This board has to get a lot of work done because he has nothing to do next turn apart from press that hero power as of right now.
Yeah.
He has some powerful follow-up turns with the Spike Ridge Steed obviously being a huge issue for Odro to get through. They don't really have any tools that just negate Spike Ridge or make it easy apart from maybe this Void Ripper, but you still have to deal with the Death Rattle.
Yes. And I think that's why Tansoku is not in a particularly bad position right now, because he has all this stickiness with the Divine Shield minions on board, meaning he's quite likely, even with a poor turn next turn, to be able to land the Spike Ridge Steed on curve, especially since he has such a high percentage of picking up something nice and playable from the top of his deck next turn.
Also as well, this Kangor is negating a lot of this early push that Yuying has in terms of the actual just health total of Tonsoku here. So this Kangor does eventually have to die, probably get soaked up by the weapon this turn, but that puts Tonsoku in full health.
And then very quickly, not at full
again,
health again.
Now he has 2 Divine Shields on that minion. No stealth this time.
So I imagine Yuying is looking at playing another power 3-drop this turn. So he's potentially looking at equality clears that he has to play around. And yeah, that's probably what leads him towards that Divine Shield. It's also a little bit better against just Consecration coming down at 6 health. But if he'd have taken just extra health and played a second minion alongside it, equality Conk could have potentially ruined his life.
Yeah, and now the tools like Consecrate, as you mentioned, and the true Silver Champion, there's very limited options to be able to clean this board up nicely. And Tonsoku did not draw a playable card this turn.
He didn't.
So this is literally hero power. Choose where my attack goes, cross fingers, hope the Spike Ridge that lands next turn.
Taking a look, I mean, his deck is fairly greedy. He could have drawn 2 Nerubian Unravelers, he could have drawn the Tarim, he could have drawn Valanir, Lich King, or Tyrion. So there was a few bricks there, but I think you'd have to consider him unlucky to not find a play on that turn.
3 drops just keep marching on. And really nice play here. This is just very solid mechanical play. You kill off the minion because you know what your opponent runs.
Yes.
Spike Ridge Steed on 6. So if you don't give them a minion to be able to cast it straight on, this gives you almost an extra turn of damage that you wouldn't have had normally.
Yep, excellent restraint from Yuying. Super tempting just to want to ship that Flappy Bird to face. But he acknowledges the power of Spike Ridge Steed. Tansoku didn't really have too much of a decision on that point. It was just a choice of 6 drops, which were Genjamin Greymane, Wind Fury Harpy, or Hero Power Blessing of Kings as well. He could have potentially played as a bootleg 6-drop.
Now with the help of the SI7 agent, there is enough damage to kill this Greymane from hand. I don't see a real reason not to go for it.
Sorry, what do you want to do?
You can play the Void Ripper, which does nothing, but activates SI7 agent, and then you should be able to clean it up. It does require the attack, though, from the minion because of that health swap.
Well, you just want to ship a 5/5 Hench Clan Thug into your opponent's minion? I really do not want to do that.
It's just a thought because Greymane has so much health, do you have a good way to get through it with, I guess, on the odds that he doesn't draw a playable minion to combine with Vilespine Slayer next turn? If you were scared of Spike Ridge Steed, then Spike Ridge goes on to Gen Greymane. That's a lot of damage required.
So the Flappy Bird already has Wind Fury, right? So he has 3, 6, 9, 12, 13. He has 15 damage next turn. So he still doesn't have lethal set up this way by not sending the damage to face. Kind of strange. I guess the Gen making a trade could have prevented lethal anyway, and he showed us that he had a potential read on the Spike Ridge Steed on the previous turn.
Right.
I really like going face there. I don't know why that trade happened personally.
It's a tough call, right? Because clearing the board going into 6 always stop Spike Ridge.
Yes.
Unless they have a coin, obviously.
Clearing the board on turn 7 never stops Spike Ridge by
No,
the same token.
but it stops the trade plus the minion being significantly higher health.
Right.
And you don't have a silence. There's only that Valspine, and then you would need to draw a 1 or 2 drop to combo it.
Right.
And if not, you lose your whole board into it if you want to try and attack. So I do definitely understand there's well, I can kill again. It's not too much of a loss.
But to counterpoint, everything you've just said about needing to draw an activator for the Valspine Slayer is also true in this best case scenario situation, or worst case scenario situation of just Hero Power Spike Ridge Steed, which you knew was going to happen. Right? Like, he needed a draw. He ended up drawing the Fungal Mancer, which works as well.
I guess where you'd split the difference is like, this is killable, where you can still win the game afterwards. If you just chunk into a buffed Gen, which would have been 12 health.
7-12, yeah.
It would have been not killable. Yeah. It would have killed all the minions you could trade into. A rough moment for Tonsoku here because, yeah, you've got your late game. You don't have enough mana to play it all, though, so...
Imagine it has to be Steed again, right? It's the only play that gives him any chance of being alive, and even then, I'm not sure if he even lives on board necessarily. Pyro Steed would take the 3-1 off the board, which would help a lot.
But it would be a 5-7.
Yes. And 3-6. So yeah, he would only take 2 to face currently, as is showing.
He might have to.
Like to play with fire?
He's going to go for it and try and hold on.
But again, draw for the Valspine is not there again. That's 2 whiffs on combo activators for this Valspine.
Is Leroy good enough, though? It is, right?
2, 3, yeah. The Leroy trades the 2-6 afterwards. Yeah, it's fine.
Wow, 2 games in a row. Lightning fast pace. And Tonsoku is just trying to hold on every single game. This even Paladin is just getting stomped, to be completely honest. A couple of bad draws from Tonsoku, but Yu Ying's just not letting up. Go, 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 go.
Yeah, and the Even Paladin wasn't even really one of the decks for Tonsoku that was particularly badly positioned. He had a couple of good matchups, and he's actually queued reasonable ones. You know, the mid-range Hunter was not a bad matchup for him on paper, but it's just that explosive start and the quality play from Yu Ying that's left him behind. So now he's facing a huge deficit without... We haven't even seen that Inner Fire Priest, which is the big question mark for me. So there is a huge hurdle now for Tonsoku to get over.
Yeah, there's still a lot to play for, though. Yu Ying is leading at 2-0, but Tonsoku can still fight back. There's only game number 2. We've got plenty more coming up, so don't go anywhere. More Hearthstone coming back right back.
这次来参赛的所有的选手都是从国内最顶尖的比赛当中选拔出来的，比以往都要厉害一点吧。算了一下，可能是他败者组出现，然后其实我已经准备1天多了。他应该能算到一个大哥的展示，就一个5，但是那个3可能没有算到。
我就希望我每一手不要打错，然后排序正常，这样子的话，我觉得就没有任何问题。打比赛的时候，我会尽量让自己放松，然后把这个比赛就是当成一个就是天梯。
不知道为什么打得这么惨，太紧张了。虽然野猪木玩过很多场，但是这么紧张还是容易导致失误。比赛的状态真的是非常的重要，主要还是心态上特别的紧张吧。因为8进4，我特别的想回 HCT 复仇，然后就这种心情过于激动，然后导致了比赛太过紧张。
他如果排序不是特别好的话，我认为快攻还是非常容易在这个上面就是冲死他的。
对面是个回血能力比较弱的模块树，然后当时我因为没有 DK， 所以我只能去抢他的脸，才能有机会打死他。
我有21血，所以是绝对不死的，除非他有 DK 可以回血缓过来，但是并不会有太好的转机，所以我选择了全部打脸。
这次没有拿到冠军，还是有点可惜，可能就是这次我有些对局的理解不够深，才输掉决赛。
得到了这个成绩，也是对我5年以来一直努力打炉石的肯定，以及对我未来继续坚持炉石的鼓励。
炉石这个游戏带给了我很多不一样的乐趣，然后还让我认识了不少的朋友，跟我算是一个缘分吧，让我正好碰到了他，我觉得还是蛮感谢的。
我希望的就是以后能够继续的努力，改正自己的心态。我希望这些批评能够化为我今后努力的动力，然后我以后会用实力证明我自己。
We are back at the HCT Winter Championships. We currently have Tonsoku versus Yuying, and Yuying currently in the lead 2-0 in a lightning-fast series so far, Soto. Is it going to be a 3-0 is my question.
I mean, if you're going to make me stick my neck on the line, I think the smart answer would be no, because he's left with his most problematic deck for the series, which is Mali Druid. Is it possible? Yes, absolutely. He has, 3 matchups in the range of 40%, or 2 matchups in the range of 40%, and a bit of a wild card against the Inner Fire Priest, where I will confess I have not seen that matchup play out in modern forms too much, but certainly in older expansions, it was a deck where Inner Fire Priest could really get some work done because of Druid's lack of removal options. But he is a favorite in the series because of the number of bites he has at these 40% shots, but will it be a 3-0? The stats say no.
Well, let's find out, as Tonsoku has chosen to queue the Paladin again and saying that, got to win with this deck anyway, may as well keep it cooking. Hydrologist and now Corpse Taker, I would say the missing link to the past 2 games, in my opinion, is there was no strong 4-drop, especially the strength of Corpse Taker, to really get played early enough to have an impact in the game.
We have turned our curse into our strength.
I think for Tonsoku as well, I think playing even Paladin here makes sense. Of course, it doesn't really matter in the long run, but it is also probably his best deck in terms of being able to win this matchup. He's somewhere in the region of 62-63% probably in this matchup now that Mali Druid is as well slower in having to do what it needs to do. Spreading Plague, not the powerhouse against even Paladin that it would be against Odd Paladin, and so these kind of just chunky mid-range threats can eventually just plow through and put on too much damage.
Yeah, the interesting point that Yuying made was when we were talking to him this week, he actually said he just likes, he's brought and likes to just play decks he is comfortable with and enjoys playing, because Mali Druid, you wouldn't say right now is, top tier, best of the best to bring.
Right.
But he's bringing it, and we've heard that from a few other players as well, so I am excited to see these decks like Tonsoku's Priest, Yuying Mali Druid, just to see how well they actually do, because I do personally rate comfort with deck at a very high point of whether to bring it or not.
Yeah, I think there's an argument to say that if you are a professional player, you should find out what the best lineup is for any given tournament and then use your time to make yourself comfortable with that lineup. But yes, I imagine, skill level with a deck, comfort with a deck, familiarity with a deck is hugely rewarding.
Yuying has this Twig of the World tree, which, yes, will enable big combos later on, but also will just chip away at Paladin tokens. So it's 1 damage, normally is quite useless, and it's not, it makes you get the odd trade, or you just hit it to face to get the Twig to break. But in this matchup specifically, Yuying is going to get some value out of it, and I wouldn't be too surprised if he just starts getting it online now. I feel like Druid can always make a use of that twig breaking.
Yeah, for sure. It's growth into twig. That's the curve that he's had so far. It's fairly obvious as far as the Druid openings go. A little bit slower than it used to be now because he had to coin out the wild growth. But you can see, as you said, the usefulness of it will really just be about picking away at this board. You saw him preemptively set himself up with a swipe there by attacking the Hydrologist instead of clearing a token. But because Tonsoku has the Acidic Swampooze in hand, he's not going to get one of those huge twig combos off in the late game, but he is going to get to use it as a source of repetitive damage just to manipulate his removal a little bit better and keep those tokens under control.
Right, and now Tonsoku finally has a powerful mid-game turn with the redemption with this Glass Knight. Not only is Glass Knight a pain to deal with in itself, because the Divine Shield and 3 health can be awkward for a lot of classes to do, but the redemption means it's just going to keep coming back and causing problems.
Nourish picked up on curve as well is huge.
Where are you going with this, Nourish? Are you ramping?
I think Branching Paths in hand is emergency card draw if you do need it, if you don't pick up the UI in a timely fashion. You would most likely like to use that armor at some point in this game. You know, Branching Paths for card draw is usually a sign that you are losing as a combo Druid player. But he does end up card drawing.
My point was, okay, you gain the crystals. You can play the Tyrant. What is your next turn? Would be my worry. Because you're not drawing, obviously, because you're using it to gain crystals.
Right.
And then if your next turn is using Branching Paths to draw, say you just whiff on that one draw, then it's another turn. And as you rightly said, I lean towards the serious amount of armor you can gain in this matchup with Branching Paths outside a potential card draw. But with the Twig Live, he either pops it in 2 turns anyway, or it gets oozed, in which he has the mana.
Yes. Yeah, I think that is crucial that he does always have that twig to rely on. And even if Acidic Swampooze does come down, it's really not the end of the world for him because he's not going to get his big swing turn, but he is going to get the UI mana that he needs. So actually, now that I look at it, with the twig already equipped, using Nourish there to find the UI more than anything is probably worthwhile because now he can just gain 12 and chill with this remaining Branching Path.
See there, the Glass Knight as well. The redemption did just go off while you were making your point, and then again, it's just frustrating. He's already seen swipe. He's already trying to swing this twig. There's a 2/6 taunt in the way now, but there is still Wrath. There is still Moonfires. There's still Spellstone, and in this matchup, you don't need to do a full burst on the Paladin to kill them. You normally just get the board, and then you won after that. Okay, 1 mana off being able to kind of play around this twig. And by that, I mean he could have played Corpse Taker and then Blessing of King's It to say, well, I won't break your twig, you want to break it, and if you do, you're going to take a lot of damage from that.
I think Yu Ying would have been okay with that scenario.
I'm just trying to think the best that Tonsoku can do, because after seeing card draw, do you really want to break that twig for him with the ooze?
Yes. I would like my opponent to have 8 less mana next turn, yes.
Okay,
or 6 less mana, I guess, when you add in the 2 extra crystals, you're ramping them.
I must move quickly.
You know, ramping the Druid to 10, yeah, they can UI you, but they can do that anyway, but you also just give them the opportunity to just have a game-ending turn, right? When any deck,
No, you're right.
when any deck can spend 18 mana in 1 turn, you're probably not winning very often.
Corpse Taker does come down, and not have the Divine Shield, but at least just gain Taunt Wind Fury as it is a threat.
Right.
The Divine Shield doesn't often make it a threat, it makes it more of a nuisance. But yeah, having the better end of the stick, I'd say, for Tonsoku there.
So Yu Ying actually has a really nice UI hand here. He had a full hand, which made the UI kind of awkward, but because the rest of his hand was Innovate, Spellstone, double Moonfire, he really just... His problem was working out which of the cards he wanted to spend his 0 spare mana on, and not how he was able to do that.
Yeah, Yu Ying pretty much had full control over his hand size that turn pretty easy. Now, double Spreading Plague, Malygos with Floop. Alex just for fun at this point. I mean, all the tools are there for Yu Ying right now. Tonsoku can drop this Tyrion he's hovering over, but you've just got to ask yourself, with this much armor, is he going to get to swing with it, or swing 3 times with the weapon?
Ying's tough turn, honestly, here.
I like Malygos.
I mean, I'm leaning towards it as well, just because you do then get that back up with the Floop anyway, but you also have the option to just go potentially full board control here and actually invest your Moonfires in clearing out the Tyrion and keeping a 5/5 in play as well.
I'm wondering, the main threats you feel against Paladin or Tonsoku at this point is, this is the kind of least damage you're going to take at this point if you play Malygos, right? And then afterwards, you have the Spreading Plagues if your opponent goes wide. And even Paladin needs minions to do damage, so they probably will. And then you always have the Floop to just drop down as and when, and the Spreading Plagues should get you there often enough, especially with that card on the far right being Branching Paths. Means that, oh, do I need more health? Did he hit me very hard with Blessing of Kings? Or has he gone wide and I can draw cards into, say, End of the Swipe, or maybe a bit more removal?
So this Alex Straza option that Yu Ying took, is indicating that he's actually interested in setting up some kind of win condition for himself. And if you're doing that, then it makes sense to do it this way, because you get the Alex out of your hand before you set up your Flabidinous Floop, right? If you play Mali first, then you have this Floop in your hand that you need to play before you play your Alex, or you're going to lose your duplicated Malygos.
Funnily enough, it's also kind of a weird backup if Tonsoku, like, your Blessed of Kings, True Silver Champion all to face. He could also 4-mana Alex himself to buff his health back. Just as like a side effect, basically. It is there and it is possible.
A legal Hearthstone play.
With the highest of praise from you, Sol. I love it.
Auto Defense Matrix looking to refresh this Divine Shield on the Tyrion.
That's the Kings on the Kango. I think that was.
Yep.
Now this is a threat, mainly because that is 10 health a turn if it can attack. And even more combined with the True Silver Champion swings the following turn.
Right. But he's looking to find himself some health as quickly as possible, because he knows, essentially, he can afford not to heal this turn, probably, right? Because the Mali Druid can't set up 15 with Twig gone and no Malygos already played. If he doesn't set up some kind of healing for himself this turn, then Yu Ying can spend this turn playing Malygos. And then Tonsoku needs to be able to heal immediately, in theory, right? Because Flabidinous Floop plus more damage can beat the 15. So he needed to make the big healing threat this turn so that Yu Ying cannot just freely drop his Malygos and say go.
I wonder.
At this point, though, Yu Ying, I guess we'll see the true comfort and experience with this deck, because he can deviate, Malfurion, Branching Paths, 2 Spreading Plagues. Yu Ying could just say, actually, we'll just play one game if you really want to,
that's what I was talking about on the
yeah.
previous turn. He had the option to go Mali and use Moonfires to take care of the Tyrion and have this board that was a 4-12 and a 5-5. And yeah, you're playing against an equality deck. That can go wrong, but it was definitely a line that you could have looked at in terms of trying to dominate the board for yourself. I said that Yu Ying clearly was trying to set up some kind of burst damage win for himself by dropping the Alex, which, to be fair, is not a bad board position card in itself. It's an 8/8. It does do a lot of stuff on the board. But yeah, and Yu Ying now probably does have to bail out of that burst damage plan and look for some kind of board position.
What do you think of double Spellbreaker? It negates the second Plague to a certain extent, because the trades would have to happen and then so on. You do push a lot of damage, and I feel like Tonsoku will respect the ability for Yu Ying and the Druid to actually go late and just not play the, oh, I can't burst you, I lose, as we've just talked. I did wonder.
Your magic
gonna be
shall
one.
not save.
Sports time.
Has become our greatest strength.
Yeah, this is a huge issue now for Yu Ying. The burst win condition is all but gone. That swipe now can be paired with the Floop, but he does need to find a turn in between that just to play Malygos down, transform that Flabidinous Floop from Alex Straza into Malygos, and then has swipe Moonfire coming out after it, but still, only 21. And still, the Crystal Smith Kangor on the board, just threatening to heal for 10 per turn.
Yeah, I was trying to see if there was a realistic way to try and kill the Kangor and then play the Alex offensively again, but I don't think you can then piece enough together to get the kill, because there is a Malfurion hero power. That's doing 3 a turn if you want it to. Disregarding taunts, of course.
It's possible, right?
But you know what I mean? Like,
Theoretically,
he can get there.
It's possible.
Yeah.
There's still a naturalize left, I believe.
Yeah, he's only used one.
So you could take the line of like, you plan to naturalize that, you Alex the face, you swipe them at some point, and then your second melee plus 2 Moonfires is lethal after that if they don't heal. It's like a really sketchy 3-turn win condition. The more I started to elaborate on it, and it's 3 turns long, it involves not dying in those 3 turns, drawing cards you don't have in your hand yet, and your opponent not drawing more healing in the meantime.
It's hard to draw cards you do have in your hand.
I started to talk myself out of it very quickly, so I definitely don't blame Yu Ying for diverting. Maybe a little bit late, in my opinion, on going to this Malagos board control strategy.
Took a look into Sottle's mind as he goes on an emotional roller coaster as to which lines of play to go for.
Sometimes
that was a very up and down like monologue going on there.
Sometimes you just gotta let your brain take over and hope that what comes out the mouth isn't too stupid. Like the stream of consciousness just happens and you just ride it where it goes.
I can't afford to let my brain take over.
No, I know. I mean, if anything, you could probably afford to let your brain take over a bit more.
I think you're giving a lot of credit to my brain, so.
That's also true, yeah.
I must move quickly.
This is just a lot of damage that Tonsoko has. He still has 2 swings of a True Silver. This secret is the Divine Shield activation, so this Tyrion is I guess, planned to stick around and keep punching people for 6, so this True Silver can just get damage done, and I don't think Tonsoko actually needs minions on the board.
I agree.
Why is he not swinging this True Silver is my question now.
In case he needs it for healing at crucial points in the following turns. Unless it directly sets up lethal for him on a following turn, I don't really see why he needs to. Because like you said, it's not like he's going to be restricted on mana in terms of having to play minions. Like, minions are kind of detrimental to him at this point.
Yep.
Because of exactly this situation. Knows that the Spreading Plagues still have to come, knows that there are branching paths to back all that up as well.
Also, if you look at a couple of these minions, or maybe even just one, like, should live, and you still have to draw your eyes to Yu Ying's hand, which does include a 4-mana Malygos and a swipe, which is very, very powerful indeed. Just as a board player at this point, as opposed to killing your opponent. Yu Ying did state that he thinks the mental state as a player is one of the most important things about being a Hearthstone competitor. Yeah, I think moments like this are testing that, right? It's like, you've lost your sort of plan A. Can I keep it together to, pull off plan B or plan C?
Yeah, I actually asked him specifically why he thought we've seen such a change of the guard in terms of the Chinese players. And what he cited specifically was not that these new Chinese players that are kind of eclipsing the names that we saw in the last 2 years or so, didn't think they were technically better players or anything. He specifically pointed out that he felt that they had better mental preparation and better attitudes and, better handle on the psychological side of the game.
And he definitely wasn't the only player to say that during player interviews either. I feel like as time goes on, they're respecting more and more that it's not about just how well you can play on any given day. It's about holding focus throughout the tournament. Right. Now there's a lot of low attack minions on Tonsoku's side of the board. It would suffer a little bit, but it would get one attack in with Tyrion, but this Tyrion just doesn't look half bad, especially now you could attack with Tyrion into one Tyrion, and the True Silver would actually clean up another one as well.
I wonder.
Yeah, it's whether you want to use the True Silver in that spot at the sacrifice of playing 2 extra minions yourself as well, additionally alongside that. Because you're giving up Hero Power Amani Berserker in that position, just to deal with a 3/3 from your opponent.
But then you lose an extra minion by not being able to trade with the weapon.
Yeah, well, I mean, you have a 3/7 taunt in the way of those extra minions.
Maybe you just don't swing at all.
So Tonsoku's looking at Consecration here instead.
I must move quickly.
Having drawn that Nerubian Unraveler, it's a tech card that we really haven't talked about in the series. A very popular tech card overall in the tournament. I think a lot of people, Tonsoko included, really predicted a lot of people bringing heavy combo-style decks, right? The kind of lineup that we saw from Noblord in the opening series. And so Nerubian Unraveler, pretty much one of the best techs that you have available against that kind of strategy right now.
Right, and it's that, or as a common difference, is the Mojo Master. It's a legendary that will reduce the mana down, but we do see the Malagos and the swipe clean up a lot of this board. There's a UI, and there is the Moonfire going down now. So Ashbringer's equipped for Tonsoku, but this is frankly just a good amount of damage on board.
Yep.
Setting up lethal. This is what's nice as well with Malfurion that I guess we've just not seen for a while is that, yeah, does 3 damage a turn.
Right.
That's a lot.
And now with Tansoku with no clear insight, no equality option that he can use to clear this board without taking damage himself, he's going to potentially find himself in some serious trouble. I think we saw him mouse over at the start of the turn the Nerubian Unraveler option to see if that can potentially keep him alive. Now he can tree silver himself up to 9, go down to 6 by attacking the 3-3. And then by leaving the Unraveler in play, no, it's just Malfurion Hero Power would kill him at that point.
That's it. The Unraveler beats the UI from hand lethal, but it does not beat the good old 2-mana Hero Power that will deal him 3 to the face. And it's a tough one. The deck just didn't get there, and I think Yu Ying just about held on. If Tonsoku could have just got through this, you can start to see, well, Yu Ying's kind of just out of stuff to win the game, apart from this Hero Power. Unless we're missing something.
Yeah, unless Tansoku's found something incredibly creative that I can't see, he is going to fall to a 0-3 defeat here. Or if you're an optimist, Yu Ying going to a 3-0 victory instead, putting 1 on the board for China. And yeah, even Paladin just found wanting in that scenario. Mali Druid was the big question mark for Yu Ying, but he was able to get it over the line thanks in part to a very, very powerful opener. He had Growth into Twig, which even though it was answered, it still functioned as mana ramp for him in the end. And we saw, in the end, it was really kind of a Malagos board control play that ended up winning the game. I'd really like to rewind 5 or 6 turns before that, and if he'd gone for the Mali board control play a little bit earlier, how that would have worked out for him. It's all much ado about nothing in the end, because he did end up winning the game and winning the series, and I'm pretty impressed with what I saw from him, honestly.
Yeah, and also you could see quite clearly there just what an equality would have done to the board multiple times over. Would have got that done. We saw the Consecrate being used, but just in a quite ineffective way.
Yeah.
And then you paired that with the equality. Then that's how the Even Paladin normally punches through these awkward boards of Malagos Druid that we've not seen for a while. But I will say, very solid play from Yu Ying. One of the first times I've seen him play, and I'm impressed.
Yeah, it was a fairly simple to navigate Hunter game early on, but he navigated it very well. There were pitfalls that he could have fallen into, let's put it that way, and he avoided them very nicely. And then from that point forward, I think the game's got a little more complex, and he navigated them very nicely. One moment in the Odro game that I'd like to go back and look at, and then Mali Druid, of course, there's always branching parts of decision trees that can potentially get you down the line. But in the end, 3-0 victory. Can't really add more than that.
Yep, impressive feat so far, but Tonsoku is not out. He just drops down into the loser portion of the group. But I do believe we've got Dan on the stage with Yu Ying for some words.
Yu Ying, congratulations on your victory. It's been a while since we've seen China player have such a strong start. How does he feel about that series?
就你刚才3比0，非常干净利落。然后，就是你现在有什么感受？
我觉得很开心。然后刚刚打的时候，我有一个地方犯了失误，有点紧张，所以还没有很完美，所以我觉得还是有点遗憾。
I feel tremendously happy, but I did make a mistake, so I was a little bit nervous back then. Yeah, it's not perfect, so I'll keep trying my best.
Yeah, well, the momentum's certainly on your side, and I think you look really good. Is there anything particularly happy that you're about? Because in terms of your deck and your preparation, I mean, you're bringing Malagos Druid, which I think a lot of people aren't playing, and I think a lot of people were just wondering about your lineup choice in particular. So is there anything that stands out to you, especially here?
就是你这次带的蓝龙德是比较特殊的，然后你可以说说你的就是一个想法吗？或者整体的构筑的思路？
因为我觉得蓝龙德在这版本的话，打一些控制卡组比较好打，打快攻也还可以，所以我觉得它是一套比较好的卡组。
I think Mali Druid is pretty good against both control and aggro decks, so that's why I brought it.
All right. I want to ask, you're dressed up really nicely, and as a person that also appreciates style and fashion, I think you look really good. Is this something that you dress normally like, or is this something special because you're playing in front of everybody right now?
就是他觉得你今天的行头非常的帅，你平时也是这样穿的吗？还是只是为了这次比赛？
我平时不怎么这样穿，然后因为这次比赛所以这样穿。
I don't usually dress up like this. It's for the tournament.
Me too. That's right. Thank you so much, Ian. Congratulations on your victory, and good luck in your next match. We'll send it back over to the guys at the desk.
Thanks a lot, Dan, our resident fashion expert there. I think you're just fishing for advice. Like, well, if you just like this all the time, maybe we can talk.
I mean, I can confirm Dan does not dress like that all the time. He's a very well-dressed man, don't get me wrong. But
Sort of pulling back the curtain there.
$5 for $1 from China. That's where all his clothes come from. There you go. Curtain pulled.
Giving away trade secrets there from Sol, but it was an impressive matchup overall, I'd say, and we can check out the group and just see how it's shaken out. We've already blasted through 2 matches so far. Viper taking down Noblord in match number 1 of the day, and then Ewing taking down Tonsoku in a very, very convincing fashion, Sol.
Yeah, I think the early story, Noblord, I spoke to him this morning, actually, and he said, you know, he felt good, about as well as he could, was his line, because he was coming up against Viper, who not only is a great player, but also has a fantastic lineup against him, and in the end really couldn't find his edge in any of those matchups. And then the series that we saw, very different story, where it was just one deck on the other side that really couldn't find a win with that even Paladin against some very strong play from Yu Ying.
Yeah, and I believe the guys talked about it at the start of the day, but very impressive result overall for Yu Ying. China, there have been questions asked all year, and if this is anything to go by, this is the championship where they make it happen. Yu Ying, great performance with the Hunter, great performance with every deck he brought. Tonsoku couldn't get it done, but he's not knocked out yet. There's still plenty to play for, plenty more Hearthstone for you guys at home to watch, so don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with some more Hearthstone.
Coming up, Bloodyface versus Tyler.
When I saw I was playing against Tyler, I felt very sad because he typically just brings the strongest, best decks.
I am actually just the most boring Hearthstone player ever. I just bring the decks that I think are the strongest. I think everyone should be scared of me in this competition because I'm a good player and I have nothing to lose, really, so.
Other players should fear me because I have nothing to lose. I'm already qualified for the World Championship, and that allows me to keep my nerves calm and just focus on the game in front of me.
Nerves will always be a thing, right? You will always get to a bigger stage. So trying to have a clear mind and focus more on the process itself, I feel like you'll be able to be a much better player. Bloodyface and I, we have the same lineup, but I have even Warlock instead of his Quest Rogue. So based on that, I should already be slightly favored.
I don't think I have a huge edge over Tyler. I think I probably have like a 45% edge over him. But at the end of the day, our archetypes are pretty similar, so it's going to come down to play skill.
All 16 players know how to play Hearthstone, but I wonder, out of these 16 players, who will be able to play at their best ability under pressure.
I think I'm already a very confident player. I don't think I'm like super arrogant or anything, but I definitely believe in my abilities.
I'm really not scared of anything. I think if there's going to be zero pressure on me, I'm not going to be nervous, and I'll be able to play at my best ability.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the HCT Winter Championship. My name is TJ, and I'm joined by the Admiral. That's Admirable. Back on the desk together. How you feeling, bud?
Dang, TJ. We're back at it again. Casting Hearthstone games.
That's right. That's admirable. I'm doing great. Yeah, and the match we have coming up for you next, as previewed by that little media piece we just showed you, is going to be Bloodyface versus Tyler. And both these players have made quite a storm of Hearthstone success in 2018/2019. Bloodyface coming off of a runner-up performance, losing to Language Hacker in just our last championship event. And also, because of his performance in that event, a lot of players, even here at this tournament, have said that Bloodyface is one of the scariest opponents in Hearthstone right now.
It certainly is. I think that Bloodyface's technical play at the last event that we saw him at was impeccable, and I made a point to talk about it quite a bit.
But when it came to this tournament and we asked the players in interviews who they thought the strongest player in this tournament was, there were a number of players who iterated that they thought not only was he the strongest player in the tournament, but perhaps the strongest in the world at this point. You know, that title really went to, amongst the players that we interviewed anyway, to Bunny Hopper, to Zhao Ti, who's qualified through China during, you know, the points race, and Bloodyface. And it was surprising to me that it was so distinct across the players that they had 3 particular names in mind and that he was one of them.
Yeah, it's a pretty big accolade for a player that kind of floated under the radar for a long time, had some big preliminary / playoff performances throughout 2016 all the way to 2018. Never made that big breakthrough, now has, and already has proved himself as one of the best in the world. But
he really blew up this year when he decided to take the step into full-time play.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Well, we have game number 1 coming up here, and it is going to be the Hunter for Bloodyface and the Paladin for Tyler.
You know, this matchup, the way the decks ended up panning out, certainly worked out in Tyler's favor. With Bloodyface having Quest Rogue on the other side, it's not exactly the kind of lineup that he was looking for in this tournament. He was anticipating much more control-ish style of decks that you can prey upon with Quest Rogue and the ability to just continue to compound the advantage you gain. Against Tyler, though, Tyler's really just chosen, you know, 4 pretty good decks. They all have a potential to be fairly aggressive at a certain point in the game. They all have, you know, the potential to open very strong and then have, you know, an explosive finish. And those are the kinds of decks that I think are dangerous for Bloodyface. I think his mid-range Hunter is really suited best to take on that style, but where his Xerix Priest and his Quest Rogue are concerned, I think those are the ones that can struggle to just very strong minions consistently throughout the game.
Yeah, and one of the key choices that Bloodyface has made for this mid-range Hunter is to put 2 baited arrows in his deck over a copy of Tundra Rhino, which was an interesting choice. And because of that, we actually sat down and spoke with him about that impactful choice for this tournament specifically. So take a look.
So while Baited Arrow might not be an intuitive card to play, I think it's actually one of the best cards to play in Mid-Range Hunter. I personally believe it's core. I wouldn't play the deck without it.
And we actually had a chance to talk with him a little bit more in depth about it, and it made a lot of sense how he explained it. He asked us when he sat down with the casters, what is the most popular 5-drop in the format right now? Neutral 5-drop, and it's Ziliax. And if you think about it in that context, Ziliax is a big tempo swing for the Hunter if you're able to play Baited Arrow. He trades over with the Ziliax, you Baited Arrow, have a 5/5 in its place, and negate half the healing, which made a lot of sense. And also he said that one of his bans is, well, not in this series, but is Priest, is pretty strong against his lineup. And he said, well, against Priest, the extra copy of Tundra Rhino that you gain is not that great against anything other than Priest where you're trying to force an early Psychic Scream. So it just, small choices like that can make a big difference in tournaments like this.
Yeah, that's largely the game outside of the game, right? You still need to have strong in-game technical play, but there's a lot going on outside of the game where the deck building is concerned. You know, in our first match, for instance, that was a match that was definitely determined by the way that players build their lineups. I think that Viper had a big edge against what Noblord had brought to the tournament, and it played out that exact same way.
Yeah. Mid-range Hunter, the most popular deck choice for the tournament. No surprise, because it is a very powerful deck. One of the things that it was lacking was its ability to keep pressure up throughout the mid stages of the game. If they missed a key draw or a key turn, they would fall behind and lose the game inevitably. Yeah. But now they have Master's Call, which allows you to have that refill, allows you to keep control of the board. And of course, there's always Deathstalker Rexar, those control matchups where you need that inevitability and that resource generation. So just a few tools that it's gotten over the course of the last year has pushed it into that tier 1 spot.
I think what's really cool about Master's Call is that it really makes you take into account how you build your deck, where a lot of our prior Beast Hunter decks were often seated around Houndmaster. It was sticking a board early and then getting the payoff from that card. And when you have Houndmaster in your deck, Master's Call is, you know, significantly weaker sometimes, where you're going to have a Houndmaster in that pool, and as a result, you discover one of those minions instead of picking 3 of them up. You know, that taking into account puts you in a different position where you have a 3-mana draw 3 beasts from your deck effect And you have to take a look at then, well, now how do I get my late game advantage? And it lets you build the deck in a more flexible way, where we're starting to see Dire Frenzies included into the deck so that you can shuffle a big minion in and draw it later with Master's Call. We're seeing the Deathstalker Rexar play a super impactful role because Master's Call helps you reach that option sooner by pulling 3 beasts out of your deck. Speak of the Devil. And I think it's just one of those cards that it's going to stick around for a while, and this is like the new face of Hunter you're looking at is decks built around Master's Call. 3-mana draw 3, that's just a good card.
Really good. And draw 3 cards that you basically curated when you created your deck.
Yep.
With that limitation of having to be beast. But taking a look at this matchup, we also have to talk about the evolution of Even Paladin in the metagame, where with the change to equality, and of course just the change to the meta in general, this deck has changed kind of its identity. It used to be lumped in with aggressive decks, and it still is sometimes. But I think the big change is that it's gotten a lot more mid-range. It's gotten a lot heavier. We're seeing Nerubian Unravelers, Mojo Master Zihi, a lot more top end with the deck, and equality sometimes cut all together. So it kind of just plays that board control game, and if I stick a big threat, I can suit it up and hit my opponent in the face, and it reminds me of mid-range decks of old.
Yeah, and that to me is really playing on the same effect too. The difference is now the mid-range effects that we currently have are much more powerful than they used to be. Specifically for me, I'm looking at Spike Ridge Steed, Sunkeeper Taram, and then the Lich King.
Yeah.
It's quite rare, I think, that you could create an 8-mana minion that outdoes Ragnaros, but I think Lich King comes pretty close.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. He also has benefit against a wide board, which Ragnaros didn't always do unless you were able to snipe face with your opponent at 8 health and a bunch of 1/1s on board. But getting into this game, kind of just a battle for board, which is what this comes down to. Whichever player takes control of the board will end up winning the game.
I was like, I know he's going to finish this thought. I just don't know exactly how yet.
Yeah, I was trying to think, like, will finish the game unless they draw their board clear. But Tyler doesn't have equalities, as I had mentioned for my previous point, which is a big thing because if he falls behind, very tough for him to get back in the game.
Right. To me, that's really the direction that Even Paladin ended up taking when it lost equality at the 2-mana slot, was that you don't have this come from behind effect anymore, so you have to get more aggressive early on. And if you're going to get that aggressive early on, you're going to have to be able to back it up, which spells early stuff, middle stuff, and then late stuff. You don't have any fancy tricks in the deck. It's pretty straightforward. So that is a scary aspect in that, if things get out of control, they're out of control. But it's a lot of times it's just more powerful feeling where your hand doesn't get bogged down with equalities in a spot where you don't need them because you're ahead, and then you end up getting behind because you don't have the right card.
Yeah. Well, here's that baited arrow that we talked about. We saw Bloody Face talk about as well.
It's a really interesting turn here for Bloody Face, where you don't typically see this many options available for a Hunter deck, where he could get the Rexar Hero Power online, but that costs him a lot of tempo. He could end up using Baited Arrow here, and I imagine Timberwolf would come down alongside that. To me, the tempo play is going to be the strongest play here.
Yeah, we talked about how impactful controlling the board is in this matchup. If you effectively give Tyler a full turn of development without your own development before that, it's going to be really tough for you to make a comeback unless Deathstalker Rexar gives you some fantastic options.
Yeah.
Which is hard because he'll only have 7 mana to work with. 5 mana for an impactful zombies, and he'd be playing off curve.
Yeah, the only real thing I would look to consider here is that Bloodyface could have used the hatchet that he still has with the Scavenging Hyena to take out the Spellbreaker on the other side, the 4/3, and then just drop Savannah Highmane. Yeah. Savannah Highmane in this spot would have left him with a 1/2 and then a 6/5 alongside of it. So his board currently looks a little bit stronger.
It looks a little bit stronger now, but he needs a full turn to set up the Savannah Highmane, whereas Baited Arrow could protect the Savannah Highmane.
Where did the hatchet just go? Next to the hero. He didn't swing with it, did he? Am I crazy? That just did. He had a 2/1 weapon.
So he Baited Arrow the 1/1.
Yeah. He
And
used
then
a
used the
3/1 to trade
Timberwolf
to the
over
4/3.
the 4/3. And
Where's the hatchet?
He pushed 2 with the Dire Mole.
Did he push 2 with the Dire Mole? He did push 2 with the Dire Mole. So he used the hatchet to swing at the 1/1. There we go.
No, because he Bandit Arrow the 1-1.
We Bandit Arrow the 1-1. You're right. What happened to it?
It's there. He has 2 attack.
What? All right. Well,
what in the world?
Yeah. Well,
there.
What the heck is going on? I am freaking out. All right. Well, now that I'm past that point, long story short, Bloodyface took tempo. That's where Paladin struggles because it doesn't come from behind much anymore.
Still has a hatchet charge in the tank. There we go.
But you can see the difference in like the Savannah Jaime and the Baited Arrow. Bloodyface might have not gotten the opportunity with Baited Arrow to actually make the 5-5. And I think that's why he ended up going with that play is Savannah Jaime is much less situational than the Baited Arrow is. You know, the situation that pans out for Bloodyface is he gets to get even more ahead when he Baited Arrows this turn because he'd be dropping a Crackling Razor Maul over it with this, instead of the Savannah Jaime by itself. But long story short, I think that those are non-factors and Bloodyface is just at a massive advantage.
Yep. Tough situation here, though. Doesn't know what that secret is, and the big things on his mind are Noble Sack and the Auto Defense Matrix.
Yeah.
Auto Defense Matrix is pretty big in this scenario because he has to break the Divine Shield, and by doing so, also wants to make sure that he's checking for Noble Sacrifice. And if it's Auto Defense Matrix, then he has to put a big attack after he checked for Noble Sacrifice into probably the Divine Shielded Corpse Taker.
Yeah,
which is also
so
brutal.
smart here. Bloodyface with the extra life to expend, he's willing to take the risk on just taking 7 damage and it being Auto Defense Matrix and getting a payoff as a result. That risk ends up panning out even better for him because it's a Noble Sacrifice instead.
Yeah.
So at this stage, I'm going to say that Tyler is pretty much shut out of the game, and I just don't think he's capable of getting back into it at this point.
Yeah, this is one of those situations where Deathstalker Rexar is also tempo because it allowed him to get rid of the possibility of having to check for both Noble Sacrifice and Auto Defense Matrix and narrowing it down to checking for both at the same time with the Hatchet Swing. Now, you said out of the game, but Tyrion is... he's a big boy.
It's quite large, and I don't think that Bloodyface is necessarily excited about seeing Tyrion here. But
Iron
that was
Beak
an Iron
Owl.
Beak Owl, yeah.
Oh.
Okay, well now he's pretty excited about seeing Tyrion here.
Yeah.
This would have ended up in Bloodyface having a tempo loss, but the difference is that he has Deathstalker Rexar online now, so he's just going to be building beasts while Tyler's just operating on the natural card.
Yeah.
So you look at Tyler's deck list, and the Lich King is still there, Sunkeeper Tarim still there, still both Spike Ridge Steeds, some pretty big stuff to pick up. But you also look and there's Consecrations, and there's a Crystal Smith Kangor, and there's 2 copies of Acidic Swamp Ooze. Like, there's a lot of nonsense that's in the deck as well. The average draw is just so much better for Bloodyface at this point.
Yeah. The average draw plus the average pickup from the zombies. So.
Yeah. And also just, the average 7/9 that's hit you in the face twice now.
Yep.
It's the law of high main.
And Bloodyface has Unleash the Hounds plus Scavenging Hyena in the hand.
Whoa.
Whoa.
Yeah, I'm curious what Bloodyface is actually thinking about in this scenario. It could just be that he's so far ahead that he's like, I don't really know what's going to get there. Spike Ridge Steed's kind of, not fun for me. I'll just take care of it and handle, a Spike Ridge Steed mini that's smaller in a very easy way. I think that Bloodyface, either way he plays this game, he's going to end up with a big advantage.
Yeah. He knows that he can play this trading game because he has the resource advantage in the long term.
Yeah. It's funny how this ends up lining up just perfectly for what the play actually was. And that's exactly what Bloodyface was thinking. Once that happens, the Valenier plus the Savannah Highmane onto the Valenier Wind Fury Harp, he's going to do it.
Yeah.
And Lethal will do it too.
Yeah, and that is going to do it. He had a couple outs there with the Enemy Companion for Lethal, plus a zombie. So whichever way you slice it, Bloodyface takes a convincing game number 1 victory in this series over Tyler.
Yeah, just that's Mid-Range Hunter in a nutshell. If you cannot check it and put it on the back foot, it's going to be able to do whatever it wants to do.
Yep.
And that is the reason so many players have brought it. It is a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah, reason why a lot of players are banning it as well in this case, which is exactly what Bloodyface did against Tyler because he didn't want to play against that mid-range hunter. But that's Bloodyface taking that first game. That one's in the books. We're going to see if Tyler can make a comeback here. We're going to have to go to a break. When we come back, more HCT Winter Championship.
HCT Winter Championship, and we're on the rumble run to the finish line. From China to North America, from South Korea to Germany. 16 players from 4 regions all over the world have emerged with hopes of seizing the throne and taking the Winter Championship crown. In the end, only 4 will advance to the World Championship and their chance at Hearthstone history. Which player will be the last left standing? Nudge yourself closer to the fire, my friends. The HCT Winter Championship rolls on.
With the developers.
My battle cry upon coming into the room, it's hard to say what its effect would be in-game, but I'm sure it would probably ensue in some kind of 80s musical stinger.
I think it'd just be like an exasperated sigh.
Honestly, it'd probably be a laugh, because I just laugh all the time in any situation, and sometimes inappropriately.
I'm very tired in the mornings, and I always have meetings in the mornings, so I just kind of like sit down like...
I'm pretty sure I would not have a battle cry, and I would have stealth, because that is what I do all day on accident, is accidentally startle people that I just wanted to talk to.
Oh man, if I had my own battle cry, it would probably bring joy and a smile, put a smile on everyone's face.
You just open the door and like dun 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 dun, trumpets are thundering. It's like, who's? Oh, it's Josh again. Oh.
If I were going to try and not startle people, then my battle cry would probably be, hey, can I talk to you real quick?
I don't know if I'd have a voiceover. It'd be more of an aura where like you just enter the room and everyone just starts like laughing.
If I had a battle cry whenever I walked into the room, it would be to transform the color of a random person in the room's hair. Just like that.
Give that minion a turn to get ready.
Oh, where's your huffer? I'll take you on! Dragon Hawks forever! And what do you want? You want some of this too?
Let me change your mind.
Woohoo! Zombies! Go, one zombie! Get these stupid dragon hawks off my field! Get them the heck out of here! And the lynxes are still back!
Greetings.
Boo, lynxes!
Greetings. 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 Greetings.
Welcome back, everybody, to the HCT Winter Championship. This is the third match of day number 1 competition, one of the initial matches for Group B. Bloodyface currently leads 1-0 over Tyler. I'm TJ, joined by That's Admirable. And one of the things that we didn't talk about in the previous game is that both of these players are already qualified for the 2019 Hearthstone World Championship. 2 of the 4 players that are already qualified at this event, Viper and Bunny Hopper being the other 2.
Yeah, and you know, if we talked about everything there was to talk about between this particular match in that first game, we wouldn't have talked about the game.
We wouldn't have talked about the game at all.
Yeah, and there's different implications for it where the tiebreakers could end up panning out if qualified players already make it to top 4. With Bloodyface, Viper, and Bunny Hopper, if they make it to the top 4, that World Championship seed goes down to someone else. If Tyler makes it to the top 4, however, it takes precedent over his points-earning World Championship victory, which means that the points in Asia Pacific then go to the second place earner in points in that region instead. So a lot of people cheering for Bloodyface in this one who are in the tournament,
And a lot of people who aren't in the tournament cheering for Tyler in this one.
Yeah.
In hopes that maybe Rivius can sneak a spot in that World Championship as well. It's pretty crazy to think about just how many returning championship competitors there are and the implications they have on them winning.
Yeah, we talked about it in the pre-show a little bit, but a lot of the Korean fans are rooting for Definition, of course, because he's a Korean player, and we've never had a World Championship without a Korean player. But they're also rooting for Tyler, because Tyler making it to the top 4 also means that Rivius gets a spot in the World Championship, which is another route for Korea to have a representative. And I even got word that Rivius actually set up a kind of event for watching the championship, a viewing party to cheer on Tyler. And he's even offering packs out of his own pocket for some of the Korean community that have the best cheer. So
that's awesome.
Pretty cool stuff. He's got a lot riding on this event as well, even though he's not here in person to try and get that qualification for himself. So pretty big deal. Bloodyface also, he mentioned to us beforehand that he still feels like he has a lot to prove. There's been in the past a lot of players who, after qualifying for the World Championship, kind of took it easy to prep for it. But Bloodyface said he wants to just continue proving that he's one of the best players in the world, because this is his full-time thing now. He quit his job to pursue Hearthstone, and nice little chunk of that 250 grand is a pretty good bonus.
Oh,
but
yeah.
also solidifying himself in the Hearthstone history books has to be at the forefront of his mind, competing in a second championship in a row.
Shout out to Rivius in chat right now, by the way. And into the matchup, I like the way that Tyler played this on turn 2, where instead of going for life tap as is the traditional even Warlock play of tap, 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 and then play a big threat, he just wants to get the threats going right away. And in this matchup, it's important to be pressuring Bloodyface's life total. There's 2 big reasons why. Number 1, Bloodyface is playing the Xeric Cloning Gallery Priest, so he has combo turns that are on the horizon that can eliminate Tyler at a lot of different moments in the game. But number 2 is that Tyler has 2 big cards that help punish the way that Priest is going to handle board states. He's got Mojo Master Zihi, which is already in hand, sets each player's mana crystal to 5 on his Battlecry, and he's also got a copy of Nerubian Unraveler, a 6-mana 5/5 that makes all spells cost 2 more. In both of those situations, if he has pressure on Bloodyface, those 2 cards have potential to end the game outright.
Absolutely. And Bloodyface is playing the very combo-oriented version of the Xeric Cloning Gallery Priest. There's a few different versions. You see kind of the anti-aggro version, which runs double Witchwood Grizzly. But Bloodyface is running the version with 2 Shadow Essence to try and accelerate the pace at which he could complete the combo. And, offer, it can get Ziliax, which can res to heal. It can get Gilded Gargoyle, which can get you a coin, and also just put a 5/5 body on board.
Yeah.
And the biggest thing is just to put more stuff in the Resurrect pool earlier on in the game that's going to help you complete that combo later on.
Yeah, the coin doesn't seem too exciting, as he gets a great pan out here from
Mass Hysteria.
Yeah, from Mass Hysteria. And one of the the big things to really look at is the fact that the coin just unleashes so much potential in the Xeric Cloning Gallery Priest, where you just have so much extra mana with Mind Blast turns after using a Spellstone or just playing a Velen on its own or what have you. Earlier access to Psychic Scream and to Lich King, if that's what it's going to boil down to. But to me, one of the interesting things about this deck is that players have debated largely which is the right direction to go. Do you want to even play Gilded Gargoyle in your deck to start with? The fact that we're so far into this deck existing and there's not a unanimous answer across the board is very interesting to me.
Yeah, especially the Witchwood Grizzlies, because we've seen people say that, I hate the Shadow Essence. You play Witchwood Grizzly, you don't play the deck, right? or some people are saying, you know what? This metagame does not suit anti-aggro cards, which overall is a solid read, and I want to complete my combo a little bit quicker and have more blow-up potential with Shadow Essence. I don't need the defense, and they play this version that Bloodyface is playing, so pretty cool.
My initial instinct was to say exactly what you said people were saying, but then you just kept saying so much that I was like, I'm not going to remember that.
Prophet Velen's on the board.
Yeah, this is definitely
solid transition.
It's kind of like, this is a weird kind of deck as well when it comes to your minions and how you actually play them. Like, so many times in the deck, you play your Prophet Velen, and if your opponent attacks it, you're like, sweet!
And if your opponent doesn't attack it, you're like,
sweet!
Sweet!
That to me is one of the reasons why this is such a powerful deck, is all of its minions are scary, regardless of whether or not they're even alive at that point.
Yeah, it's a catch-22, healing or damage.
I don't know what catch-22 really means, or like its origin. Why is it catch 22? Why isn't it catch 23?
I don't know.
Maybe it was the 20-second catch that somebody, figured out about a situation, and that was the one that stuck.
That's a great question.
Kind of feel bad for catch 18. No one even remembers that one.
I mean, catch 23 was just waiting in line for his turn.
Second Mountain Giant is problem for Bloody Face.
Well, the term Catch 22 actually gained currency as the title of a 1961 war novel by Joseph Heller, who referred to an Air Force pilot rule whereby a pilot continuing to fly combat missions without asking for relief is regarded as insane, but is considered sane enough to continue flying if he does make such a request. A Catch 22.
Yeah, 22 was mentioned a lot of times in that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the 20-second catch.
Great read. Highly recommended.
Spirit Lash, then Resurrect.
Not all who wander are lost.
Lines up against the Mountain Giant quite well and also protects Bloody Face from a single buffed Spellstone from killing off the Prophet Velen. Very solid sequencing. However, Holy Smite would have prevented the Spellstone plus the 2/3 trading, but I think with 2 Lesser Diamond Spellstones and Lich King in hand, Bloody Face just isn't really worried about that.
Yeah,
Tyler's spending 4 mana and not getting a Lich King down.
I don't think he's ever really expecting Prophet Velen to live, and even if it does live, I don't think he's expecting that to be his main win condition. So I like his option here of holding on to the Holy Smites for that killing blow.
Yeah, a little curious if Tyler should be getting the Hooked Reavers going here, just for the the thought of Blood Reaver Gul'dan in the Resurrection pool, but you just may not have a thought of really getting Blood Reaver Gul'dan down anytime soon. Maybe a long time before he does that. But the game plan for Tyler is still pretty straightforward. Play things, try to get to a scary board position, and then punish with Mojo Master ZD.
Yeah. Arming the Dead, interesting.
Pretty risky card.
Yeah, can sometimes be used as a bootleg Xerix.
That is last week's Otto.
That's not nearly as good as the actual Xerix, but it's cheaper.
And this is really the turn to do it. It was just you got to trade over a Lich King and then develop 9 extra attack alongside of it. This is a massive turn for I'm sorry, you get 7 extra attack alongside of it. It's just a big turn where Bloody Face now, if he wants to get Spellstone going, Xerix cloning Gallery into big combo damage, we're 3 turns off again.
Yeah. He can still Eternal Servitude back a Lich King, if that's what he so chooses. Could also Eternal Servitude back a Velen and maybe clear off a few minions from the board, the Plated Beetle and the Shroom Brewer if he's really worried. But the thing to note about Mojo Master Zihi is that it sets both players' mana crystals to 5, so Tyler also has less follow-up.
Yeah, it does technically yield a little bit of initiative to your opponent, which is why I really actually like this card, is that it requires you to set it up to be good. It's not like Lotheb of the Days of Yore, where you're like 5 mana 5/5, shut off your spells for a turn. Sweet.
No downside.
Yeah, the downside is your opponent may kill you the next turn with the minions they have in play.
Yeah.
But Mojo Master Zihi threatens that you lose tempo in the game and just never sees it back.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think Lich King is quite clearly the superior pick of the two at this moment.
The interesting thing to me is the Radiant Elemental.
Yeah, he wants it in the Resurrection pool.
I suppose
one of the Diamond Spellstones just got buffed.
Okay, yeah, that's true, because previously he only had Lich King and Velen, as we just saw with the Eternal Servitude, so he wants to get full value of that. No, that makes sense.
It also just threatens to actually have an impact on the game, where Tyler is very concerned about killing off the Radiant Elemental to some degree, and so he's asked to think about where the damage is concerned. And for Bloody Face right now, I think alleviating damage is quite a priority.
Tyler has access to Spellbreaker here. He could push to 11 damage. Would not set him up for lethal if his board gets cleared in some way, because he would only have access to 7 mana next turn, which would just be enough for 1 Hellfire.
It's also scary when your opponent has the Radiant Elemental plus a Velen in the pool. You're looking at Mind Blast, Holy Smite being lethal with a Spellstone.
Yeah,
at that
that's
point.
true.
There's just a lot of things going on, but if it's a buffed Spellstone, that's going to be lethal anyway. Tyler's in this battle where I think he needs to figure out a way to take a risk. and try to kill Bloodyface.